The girl understands that this will take no more than 3 months. The lady has accomplished more in the last 4 months than in the last 27 years. But this is still not enough. The girl also wonders if she has ever lived for herself. The Simon Empire rebelled against the Baruth Empire. The Great War lasted for more than a year and a half, and a commoner hired by the imperial family played a huge role in it. His name is Zester. The emperor wanted to reward the boy with a high rank, but faced strong protests from high-ranking nobles. Cassia married a baron, and although she was considered the best bride in the empire, she was still ultimately sold to a commoner mercenary who had only recently become a nobleman. But the girl still went there, dreaming of a happy marriage. After all, there was no marriage that could make her heart beat. As a result, her husband could become more than just the emperor's dog, as they wished. From civil wars to territorial battles, whenever money was tight, the girl always stayed at the estate. The lady wonders if she was too modest, for Baron Zester was never a good husband. In all 10 years, she never heard him talk about love. But the children were completely different, and now looking at their mother. They ask her with tears in their eyes not to get sick. It's been a month since Zester went to defend the territory of Visha, and the girl wonders if he would have stayed with her if she had said that she had less time. But then the lady realizes that everything is not so, because even if she said, then nothing would have changed. The girl understands that she does not want to leave this world, remembering only this rude attitude. After all, there is still someone to mourn her. The servants are also worried about their mistress. One of them says that most of the lady's subordinates will leave Grizz as soon as their mistress leaves them, and asks her not to leave them. The main character claims that as the mistress of this house, she should have been more. But at that very moment, the girl starts coughing and understands that now she feels like she never lived for herself. Closing her eyes, the lady thinks that she would be happier living without worries. At that moment, someone bursts into the room and screams at Cassia. It turns out to be Zester, and the servants ask in shock, "Has the master really come?" The man walks towards his wife, after which he falls to his knees and asks why everything turned out this way. The maid immediately asserts that since the master is there, the mistress should speak out about what she wants most. The man asks if she really wants something and suggests that she tell him right away. After all, he will do anything, and the girl asks if that is really true. After which she claims that she wants a pearl necklace. Her interlocutor is surprised and asks why she is asking for such a small thing. Well, his interlocutor asks how she can ask for something so luxurious when he is the only one who works so hard. Zester cries out, "Is it luxury to buy just one necklace? And why did he earn so much then if she wasn't going to spend it all?" The lady claims that she also wants to go to the capital, and the guy shouts that they can do it. His interlocutor says that he just returned from the war, so she can force him to leave this place. The girl also claims there's something else. The guy asks what it is, and the lady tells him to find a new wife when she falls into eternal sleep. But the guy immediately cries out that he will never do that. The lady asks again if he will fulfill her wishes. Her interlocutor replies that, of course, he will do all this, but swears that he will never marry another woman. Cassia says that he is only kind to her when she falls into eternal sleep, after which the lady takes out the contract and, showing it to the baron, asks to sign. The man looks at this contract. He is surprised by what is written there, after which he looks at the main character. But the girl immediately begins to cough up blood, and then completely loses consciousness. Children and servants scream with tears in their eyes. They immediately examine the lady, but realize that there is no hope left. At this time, the baron rises with a contract in his hands, but then he tears it apart and throws out the pieces, claims that he will never do this. At this time, the main character opens her eyes and thinks about where she ended up. Looking around, the lady realizes that this is her room and wonders whether this is heaven or hell. But she had heard that when you fall into eternal sleep, you go to paradise in your original form. The girl immediately cries out to the Lord, but after a couple of minutes, he asks when he will come. In response to this, the lady hears only silence, but at that very moment, she turns her head, and she sees that she is not alone in the room. The girl immediately falls to the floor in surprise. The baron wakes up, and seeing this, asks if the girl is safe. The main character thinks how this is possible, after which she asks what he is doing. Is he really going to pursue her to the very end? The lady claims she never wants to see his face again, because even though he's handsome, it's so infuriating, so let him disappear from her sight. Cassia doesn't understand whether she must go through hell before going to heaven. But at that very moment, someone throws a blanket over the lady. The main character is surprised, and when he raises his gaze, then she sees her husband and looks away in embarrassment, asking the Lord to save her from this hell. The guy lifts his robe and claims that she turns out to be one of those who expresses hostility, considering that it is already late, after which he leaves altogether. When the door slams, the lady begins to pray again. She asks the Lord that if he has any conscience left, then let him pay tribute to her hard work. Cassia realizes that this is not a dream, because she really has gone back in time 10 years. And all these expensive items remind her of her first night with Zester. The girl feels pain in her back and realizes that this is undoubtedly the first time she has spent the night with such a big one. But she doesn't understand why she went back exactly 10 years, because it would have been better to go back 20 when she was still a baby. The lady understands that it doesn't matter, because the outcome would have been the same. When the Imperial War took place, the lady was still young, so she doesn't know exactly what Zester did, but the Emperor wanted to give him even more. A little while ago, a man claimed that since there was no mistress in the new house of their war hero, then won't Mr. Ruberno's daughter take this place of honor? The reward was befitting a war hero, and the Emperor even wanted to give the boy a special title. There were 3 princesses at court, but none of them were related to the Emperor. The lady again says that if the Lord was going to send her back, he would have sent her at least the night before, and at least she wouldn't have to think about her reputation if she was sent away. Last night, the Baron looked at the lady in silence, after which he turned around completely, saying that he was not excited, but the lady stopped him, after which she said that if he left like that on their first night, then rumors will start spreading about her. And she knows that the Baron doesn't like her, but still, after that, something happened to them. A very interesting night. The girl realizes that she remembers that day as one of the 5 worst in Baron Grizz's palace. The lady is complaining about the situation again, but at that very moment, he notices something. When she approaches the mirror, she realizes that before she fell into eternal sleep, she had short hair. Grizz's land faced severe famine. Around that time, wig production began in a neighboring state. Money flowed like a river, so to fill their stomachs, women cut their hair and sold it to Visha. The girl sold her hair to help the younger generation, and silver hair was extremely valuable. Thanks to the gentleman who went to war, even in the most severe famine, she cut her hair short, like an ordinary woman. Now, the lady is wondering if all this darkness will happen again, but she immediately understands that she will only fall into eternal sleep in 10 years. So now she can take whatever she wants and do whatever she wants in the place. Can't she take her own? The Lord sent her there, preserving her memories so that she would not repeat her mistakes. So she will just do whatever she wants and enjoy the luxury. But the girl understands that she doesn't really want anything else. It would be a good idea to tell the Baron everything she thought, but for now, she would put it off. At the same moment, the lady thinks why she should stay with him at all. Since he doesn't care about her, a divorce won't be difficult. She cared about someone who didn't care while she was falling into eternal sleep, and come to think of it, she doesn't even know if he signed the divorce papers. They are married only on paper. The girl must look after the estate and bear him heirs, while he thinks only about war and money. Now the girl says that if they get divorced, she will return to Luberno, have fun, eat and enjoy life. But at the same moment, the main character remembers the children. The girl understands that it would be even worse to live her life again without them. She needs to come up with a way to show them the light of this world. The lady is wondering how she can have a child. To meet Rael and Lucy again, she must work hard. Although it is only necessary on the appointed day, a relationship with such a terrible man will become a real nightmare. The girl thought that all relationships in marriage bring pain, but when she overheard the maids talking, she realized that the problems were in her relationship. She even felt awkward communicating with other residents of the estate. It happened when she was pregnant with Rael. When the girl told her husband about this, he simply thanked her for her hard work. The lady understands that he can't even pretend to be happy. What did she expect from him anyway, by the way? The lady carefully chose names for Rael and Lucy. Cassia realizes that she cannot get a divorce without having children, after which the lady returns to bed and understands that when he takes a nap, he will think about how to live this life. It would be nice to see the gates to heaven when you wake up. A little while later, the lady is already tying the bow. The girl realizes that she doesn't have a plan, but she will appear with her head held high. When the girl grabs the door handle and opens it, he sees there a servant named Paul. The man immediately introduces himself to the lady and claims that he will show her around the estate and also provide her with a suitable maid. Once the girl became the mistress of the house, she had to take on Paul's responsibilities, as well as control over the property. Cassia wonders why she should suffer again, and claims that she has hope, that they could discuss everything later, since she had to see the Baron now. Her interlocutor asks whether he should accompany the lady, and she, with a forced smile, replies that yes, because she understands that it would be suspicious if she knew where the Baron's room was, considering that she had only arrived yesterday. A little while later, the lady finds herself under the office, after which he goes inside. There she sees her husband sorting out paperwork. The Baron wonders what the matter is, and the girl understands that everything is as expected. She takes a chair and sits down opposite him, after which he claims that he wants to say something. The butler had just informed her that since she had become the mistress of the estate, then she must take over all responsibilities. The Baron believes that this is so, but the girl apologizes and claims that she is not good and is not interested in such things. If she takes responsibility for the entire court, he thinks that it will soon collapse, because as he knows, she is not prepared for marriage and has not the slightest desire to change this. She also states that she hopes he will not force her to perform the duties of a wife as well. In her past life, the lady worked hard even when no one asked her to, and it must have been because she worked herself to the point of exhaustion that she contracted an incurable disease and ended up so sadly. But now she is not going to repeat the mistakes and asks if he doesn't approve of it. The Baron replies that that is not the issue and she can do whatever she wants. Cassia asks if he is sure, because the guy can't take his words back. And since he insists she still doesn't intend to work, the man replies that it's fine, and he's only slightly surprised, because it seems as if there's a completely different girl in front of him. Cassia is a little surprised, and the guy claims that, it turns out, she is one of those who freely says what is on her mind. If she didn't like what happened yesterday, then she shouldn't have forced herself to do it. Cassia, however, claims that there seems to have been a misunderstanding. She had no experience, so she doesn't know whether she liked it or not, but she didn't think that she would hate sexual relations. But after a night with him, they became disgusting to her. The girl addresses the Baron, and he comes out of his thoughts, after which the lady asks if he will still allow her to do nothing. Zester claims that when the butler returns, he will tell him that she will have to be patient for a little while longer, so let her do what she wants. The girl says that in that case she will go, and when she leaves, the man again thinks about her words. The guy realizes that he really liked it. He even writes it down on paper, but when he notices it, he is shocked and tears up the document, after which he sighs heavily. At this time, the main character thinks that if she were not from the Simon Empire, then no one would know about her. Being the eldest daughter of the Count, she was like an angel, and the lady thought that the reason was that her previous world was different. However, she was only a lady, unable to marry a worthy nobleman, and a commoner who became a mercenary married her. Cassia wonders if she has really lived in the stinking village for so long. If you don't take into account the fact that the marriage was only on paper, then their relationship was no different from ordinary ones. After all, she still had status and an untouchable place. Cassia remembers her saying she would try her best, and he also wants to wish for their lands to prosper even more. The girl also remembers what she said on the first night. At this time, the Baron thought that he had never desired a woman before. At that moment, he seemed to lose his mind. After all, he thought that she was his wife and wanted this herself, because it could be unpleasant. He tried his best to avoid touching, but did she really not like it and not want it at all? And the lady even said that it was disgusting, and the Baron thinks that it would be better for him to be alone. It couldn't get any worse. Zester wonders if he should apologize for his mistake. But at the same moment, someone else addresses the master. When a man tells this person to come in, then the servant claims that he must tell him something about the mistress. Since she arrived yesterday, he should hand over the household duties to her. Although he still thinks that there is nothing better than land inspections, so he came to find out the master's schedule. But his interlocutor replies that for now, everything remains in the hands of the butler. His wife is still young, and the county and this place are like night and day, so it will take her some time to get used to it. The servant only remains silent in response, and the master asks why he is looking at him like that. Paul claims that he was just a little surprised, because it was the first time he had heard the gentleman talk so much. He is also surprised that the master takes good care of the lady, and the man insists that in any case, let everything remain as is. Then the butler claims that he will have to talk to the lady. He also wonders when the Baron is going to inspect the lands, And when they finish their discussion, that butler is about to leave. But the Baron turns to him and asks if he is busy. The servant replies that no, and understands that 2 years have already passed since he began serving the master. So is he finally going to ask about something personal? The Baron at this time claims that he is curious about something. The butler immediately comes closer and asks what it is. He also asks the gentleman to speak frankly, but he still can't collect his thoughts, after which he falls silent completely. He turns to his interlocutor and asks if he's married. The butler replies that yes, and he got married when he was in the capital. True, his wife left this world 2 years ago because she had been weak since her youth. The Baron apologizes, and his interlocutor replies that everything is fine, since a lot of time has passed. He also wonders if this is what the gentleman was interested in, but he replies that no, and then the butler thinks what it is. At that very moment, Zester slams his hand on the table and screams out a request to be taught how to make love. The man is shocked, wondering if this is really going to be sex education, and wondering if the gentleman is having any difficulties. Zester claims that it is his wife who is to blame. She said again that she hates him, and the look on her face makes him feel terrible. The butler thinks that's why she came early, and that it's so serious that she decided to go down personally. The butler knew that for his age the gentleman was innocent, but he did not know that it was to such an extent. Paul apologizes, but claims that he does not have enough knowledge to teach the master, and it would also be impolite to listen to his personal problems. Zester claims that this is true, and that it should not have been said. However, Paul adds that the relationship between master and mistress is a significant part of marriage. It is true that one must learn when one is in difficulty, so perhaps there is a lady in their domain who can help. The Baron asks if this is really a girl. His interlocutor asks him not to misunderstand, because this is not a matter of theory, but he is concerned about the gentleman's reputation, and if he allows it, he will try to contact her without anyone knowing. When the gentleman asks who it is, the butler replies that it is Lady Florent. The guy is shocked by these words, but at the same moment, he remembers his wife's words that she hates it, and he tells the butler to contact this woman. Lady Florent is a Grizz woman who gained fame and fortune thanks to her body. Unlike others, she is intelligent and has a command of the humanities, and at the same time, her figure is befitting of an aristocrat. It is only natural that she became famous as the best courtesan in the entire capital. Thanks to numerous aristocrats, she earned more than any commoner could ever dream of. The aristocrats did not choose her, because it was the other way around. The line of aristocrats who wanted to hold her hand could have extended far beyond the capital, and among the aristocrats, because of her luxurious life, she began to be called Lady Florent. The title of lady belonged only to born aristocrats, but nothing could be done about her origin, which also served as a reason for ridicule, and now she is in her hometown for medical purposes. Fortunately, she agreed to teach the master, but if rumors spread, it would be problematic. It is not unusual for an aristocrat to have a courtesan, but the problem is the mistress. She will be very surprised to learn that there is another woman in the palace, even though they are newlyweds. For now, he will be quiet, but when there is a misunderstanding, then he will tell her. A little while later, the man approaches the mistress's room, and when he knocks, the girl tells him to come in. But when the butler opens the door, he is shocked. He sees a girl lying on the bed in a strange position, after which he immediately slams the door and says who he is and why he came. But when he opens the door again, he sees that the lady is again lying there carefree, and he understands that it seems that she was really very shocked. The man asks the lady if something is bothering her, but the girl immediately replies that nothing of the sort is happening, and that she is simply enjoying free time for the first time in her life. She would never have thought that just lying around and doing nothing could be so great. Let the butler also remember that he needs to take a break from time to time, because after all, who else could say that he has overworked himself? It is important to take care of your health, even when you are young. The butler is shocked and wonders if this is really what a 17-year-old girl should say, after which he returns to professional behavior, and he tells the lady that he is there to find out who she would like to see as her maid. Although he was going to send the maids to her one by one, if the lady liked one, he would take up her training. The girl replies that it's okay, but at that very moment, someone knocks on the door. The girl claims that her name is Vita and says she would like to greet the lady. The butler says that is not possible now, but the main character wonders who it is, and if there is a reason why he won't let her say hello. The man replies that he does not, but at that very moment, he falls silent. The main character understands that this time Paul went too far in trying to hide the presence of this woman from her. Vita is a childhood friend from the village of Zester, who entered the estate as a maid on the day of the Baron's appointment. Just because she was a childhood friend, she was perceived differently and was called Miss Vita. Cassia understands that everything is obvious, and didn't the guy bring this girl to cheat on her? At the same moment, the girl tells the maid to come in. She also understands how good it is that this is her second life, because this time, she is going to eliminate everyone who invades it, and she will sort out everything that she couldn't do over the past 2 years. The maid enters the room, and the main character realizes that this is the bright and kind lady from Grizz. She would have liked her if the main character were a man, but everything is different when you're married. So how dare he hide his mistress after marrying her? Now the main character says that the girl's name is Vita, to which she replies yes, and introduces herself. The lady also claims to have grown up with the Baron. Her parents were ill, so she often stayed home to look after them, and thanks to the Baron's kindness, she was given the opportunity to live on the estate. The girl also tells the lady that she was so eager for their meeting because she was always quite bored, since there was no one her age there. She also claims that they will have the most wonderful relationship with the mistress. Cassia says that if Vita and the Baron are always in the palace, then it seems that they are quite close. The girl immediately claims that they are not related by blood, but treat each other like brother and sister. Cassia realized that Vita was undoubtedly crazier than anyone she'd ever met. She was bound to see a woman of such high status enter the estate, and not even his wife. Zester's main mistake was that he did not draw a line between aristocrats and common people. A little while ago, a maid ran up to Zester and called him by name, but when she saw the main character, she was a little surprised, and bowing, she asked the lady for forgiveness. A little while later, Vita also addressed one of the maids. She also cried out how dare she seduce the Baron, to which she replied that she had never even thought of such a thing. Vita told her mistress that this was only continuing because the servants underestimated her. At such a time, as the mistress of the estate, she must show all severity and dignity. Even though it was clear that they were not guilty of anything, the girl could not go against Vita. The Baron said that Vita is one of the few people he trusts. Although it is Cassia's power to manage the servants, this girl is not a maid, so he asks her to treat her as such. There is no point in suspecting anything. Cassia realizes that Zester is 7 years older than her, so they spoke formally, and only with Vita did he speak differently. She kept saying it was her fault, but she didn't do anything about it until the very end. The hostess was left to eat alone with the peasant woman, and then she would have restrained herself because she did not dare argue with her husband. But now her head hurts just from these thoughts. At this time, Vita turns to the lady, and Cassia claims that she is a little tired from the journey and will greet her next time, so she asks if the girl could leave her. Vita agrees, and the butler urges her on. The main character realizes that this 2-year nightmare with Vita ended only when she became pregnant with Rael. According to the doctor, stress put her at risk of miscarriage, so she ordered Vita to be expelled, as she was the cause. Surprisingly, she packed her things and left, but it was no use for them to hide it from her. However, when the girl approached the bedroom, she heard Vita asking Zester how much longer she had to wait. The noise coming from Zester's bedroom was clearly imprinted in her memory. Cassia understands that she should have guessed back then that he was cheating on her, and this time she will not miss anything. A little while later, a woman with red hair sits in front of the Baron. She feels irritated, and looking at this guy, she thinks, why would she even start teaching him? When the lady says nothing, the Baron turns to her. Florent asks what is it, and her interlocutor asks if he really has something on his face. The woman immediately apologizes and claims that she seems to have been very surprised, since this was the first time she had met a man like the Baron. Then, he asks if he really didn't use his hands or mouth during the process. The man asks if he said he was confused, and his wife too, after which he even wonders why he had to use his mouth. The woman turns to the servant and asks if she can at least have a cigarette, but he asks her to refrain. Florent understands that he needs to calm down and says that what the Baron did with the Baroness on their first night, it's not exactly something a couple would do. If this action had to be called something, then she would say that it is similar to animal mating. The guy, shocked, asks if this is really true, and his interlocutor repeats these words, after which he picks up a pen and states that he will use it. Florent draws the outline of a female body on paper, after which he invites the Baron to take a look. Zester, shocked, asks what it is, and Lady Florent insists that it is the body of a woman. She thinks he already understands what's behind the reproduction process, so they'll skip that part. Although the ultimate goal of this process is the reproduction of offspring, but she can guarantee that no wife would be pleased if her husband simply stripped naked and started mindlessly thrusting into her. And the guy said that he really liked it, but she hated it to the point of damnation. So the lady states that she thinks it's not too fair that he was the only one enjoying himself. Florent draws dots on his sketch, and he says that these places need to be touched tenderly and with love. The man immediately screams out, asking what she's talking about. His interlocutor asks if he's really going to react to everything like a child. Zester asks how he can do such things to his wife, and his interlocutor screams, doesn't he want to have a healthy relationship? And she was told that he asked her to come and teach him everything. The guy screams, doesn't this look more like animals? And doesn't the lady seem to be asking him to grope her body? The woman asks if he doesn't want to do it, to which he replies that he wants to. But how can he, after all? Did Lady Florent really see his wife? She's so small and pale, so it's not something he can touch. Lady Florent sighs heavily and states that she hopes his wife still has patience. The Baron claims that he doesn't think the lady will like it, and how dare he do such a thing? The woman suggests that the Baron not rush to conclusions without even trying, after which she begins her training. The protagonist realizes it was a peaceful week. Vita kept her company, chatting about all sorts of things she had already heard in her past life. The girl claimed that Zester, that is, the Baron, got into a fight with her just like that. Cassia realizes that now she is not jealous at all, and must endure until she catches them in secret meetings. But at the same moment, Vita tells the lady to wait. After all, someone just left Zester's office. The maid immediately turns to the girl and asks who she is. She immediately claims that she is lost. Vita immediately runs to this lady and screams that she just left Zester's office, after which she asks who this woman is and who invited her to the estate. The main character sighs at this time, after which he turns to Miss Vita and asks what kind of behavior she allows herself to have with the guest. So let her go immediately. The maid asks if she can look at the woman's face, because she is suspicious, after which she rips the cape off Lady Florent. The main character tells Miss Vita that she told her to stop, but the maid at that very moment screams out that this girl is a courtesan. She is quite famous even in the capital, so the lady might not know. At this time, the woman wonders if there really was such a rude woman there, and who this girl is to speak to her like that. She wouldn't be offended if she came to earn money and have fun. Florent claims that she intended to leave quietly, but it seems that she should introduce herself since there was a misunderstanding. And the lady standing opposite her is, after all, Baron Grizz's wife. Florent introduces herself and claims that the butler contacted her, saying that the Baron had a problem, so she was there to meet him. And, however, she was genuinely pleased to meet him. Cassia replies that yes, and it was the butler who invited her as a guest, so the mistake was only due to the ignorance of this miss. It seems the lady was already leaving, so she asks her to take care of herself, to which she agrees. But at that moment, the maid can't take it anymore, and he furiously grabs Lady Florent by the hair. The main character watches this fight in shock, after which he tells Vita to stop altogether. At this point, Lady Florent screams for her wife to help her. The main character immediately runs up to help, but the woman accidentally grabs Cassia by the clothes and starts shaking her. The butler immediately comes out of the office and shouts out what is going on there. But at that very moment, the main character flies away. The Baron immediately catches her, and Cassia realizes that this is a complete mess, and how everything turned into such a mess. Cassia wonders who started all this. At the same moment, the Baron asks if the girl is okay, and if she is hurt. But at that very moment, the main character screams out that she is not okay at all. Her husband is a little surprised by this. Cassia tries to catch her breath, and then turns to Vita, and he tells her to let Lady Florent go. When the maid tries to object, the main character screams at what an impudent woman she is. Vita is shocked by this and lets the woman go. The main character wonders if Vita really considers herself the mistress of this house. The Baron considers her family, so she thought she should stay there. But since she is not able to understand when she should or should not interfere and rush into something thoughtlessly, as the mistress of this house, she cannot just sit and watch. Not only did she attack their guest, but she was also trying to challenge her authority, so she couldn't let this continue any longer. Cassia turns to the Baron and claims that if she leaves it like this, no one there will take her seriously. Someone is covering for her, so the girl behaves too arrogantly and it is impossible to even kick her out. Zester is shocked by these words, and the main character insists that she'll think about whether she should stay there, so she should keep that in mind. The maid asks what she's talking about, and Cassia cries out that she was extremely condescending. But does she really look like her friend? Vita immediately turns to the Baron and asks if she was wrong, after which she asks him to say something to the lady. The protagonist turns to her husband, who remains silent. Afterward, the girl claims it's unfair, since she did it for the Baron and lady. But the butler tells Miss Vita that he thinks it would be better to obey the mistress's order, so he asks her to return to the room. The main character says that she can't believe that he is so sensitive to the arrival of a commoner, and it doesn't matter who they are, but it is a common thing for aristocrats to invite women. The Baron says that everything is not so, but the main character interrupts him and claims that if Vita understood, then she should get out of her sight this very minute. And she will also think carefully about what she did today. But the maid only begins to cry. The main character wonders if she can't hear her. The Baron says, "Dear, it seems there was a misunderstanding." The main character immediately screams that she told Vita to return to the room right now. The man looks at Vita at this time, and the girl seems to be asking him to help, and also asking if he will take her side. But he only irritably asks what she is doing instead of listening to Cassius. After all, she told me to disappear from sight. A little while later, the butler comes to the gentleman and states that he thinks the lady has misunderstood the reason for Lady Florent's arrival, so he'll look for her and explain everything. But the Baron tells him to forget it, because he'll talk to her himself. A little while later, he knocks on the girl's room and asks if they can talk. The main character tells him to come in, and when the Baron comes in, he sees a lady in a thin dress. He realizes that the girl must be cold, after which he is about to take off his coat, but hesitates a little and thinks what is difficult about it. At this time, the main character wonders if he really wants to say something, and her interlocutor claims that he is guilty. Cassia wonders why he suddenly came in person and admitted his guilt, and even today took her side. She asks if he did anything wrong. The Baron claims that he met Lady Florent without any strange intentions, and that certain circumstances arose. Cassia asks if he doesn't admit his wrongdoing. Then why did he mention Lady Florent? Zester claims that the misunderstanding is connected with the fact that he invited Lady Florent there. But the girl says it's strange and asks why he's apologizing. The shocked man insists he truly didn't think anything like that. But the main character insists she already said so, that she didn't care what his intentions were. The hierarchy at the Baron's estate is so convoluted that Miss Vita dared to look down on her, even though she's the boss. The man claims he should have specifically mentioned this, but his interlocutor insists that the Baron doesn't need any explanations, since the butler has already explained to her why Vita is at the estate. Even so, she shouldn't be allowed to cause such a scene. Zester sighs and realizes that the lady found out from Paul, and this is his bad habit. But however, he just had to tell everything. Zester also wonders why he continues to disappoint his wife. Cassia claims that, being second only to him, she, as his wife, should be respected more than anyone else in this estate. But it is very unpleasant for her to see how the Baron swears, unable to cope with his own people. If a guy is going to ask for forgiveness, then she only hopes for that, and nothing more. Cassia claims that she says this because he wanted to apologize for inviting Miss Rosaline to his place. She has no intention of interfering in his personal life or trying to figure out why he invited a woman or anyone else to his place. There's no need to worry, and besides, she doesn't care what kind of relationship he has with Miss Vita. However, she asks him not to allow this commoner to act arrogantly in front of her. Zester insists that there really is nothing wrong between them, but the girl claims that, as she already said, it doesn't matter. After all, he is not obliged to look at her, and it does not matter whether he is right or not. A little while later, the butler turns to the gentleman and asks if the meeting had gone so-so. When he met the lady, she looked quite happy, so he thought they had a good talk. The lady asked him to take care of Miss Vita, and the butler asks what he will do. The man replies that it is her wife's decision, so he doesn't even know how to tell her that she can do whatever she wants. A little while later, the butler enters the mistress's room, and the main character thinks about the wonderful aroma of the tea. It had been so long since she had been leisurely enjoying her tea, and she felt so good. The girl also looks at the cake and thinks how delicious it is, and it's so beautiful outside the window while she eats and enjoys time alone with herself. At the same moment, the butler turns to the lady and claims that a letter has arrived from Madame Gavilan. He thinks Lord Gavilan sent him. The girl understands that this means it is from Drayan, and she hasn't heard from him for so long. The guy wrote to the lady that now that he can finally take a break, his eyes are full of tears just thinking about her. He also wonders how the lady is doing in that small village, and she's not sick. The young man insists that he's actually thinking of going over there and taking a look. Can she really live in such a place? So let the lady answer him, because he is really interested to know what kind of man took her to that village. He'll be brief, because if he keeps writing, he'll start cursing, so he's hoping for a quick reply. The girl realizes it's the same informal style she remembers. When the lady first received this letter 10 years ago, she was so angry that he ignored her husband that she eventually replied that their friendship was over. Since then, Drayan's letters have been burned without a glance, but the lady doesn't understand why she did it. The girl immediately turns to the butler and states that she wants to answer, after which she asks if he could prepare the paper. She also states that Lord Gavilan wishes to visit them and asks if she can invite him, to which the man replies that of course, and asks when he wants to come. Cassia replies that he'll probably leave as soon as he receives her letter, so it might take 2 weeks. The butler agrees and says he'll keep that in mind and begin making appropriate preparations. Cassia thanks him and insists that he can discuss it with the Baron. After this, the girl begins writing a letter to Viscount Gavilan. The lady asks why he writes so informally, and what if someone else read this letter. Cassia writes that she is doing well, and it seems that finally he is not so busy, so let him come as soon as he receives her letter, and she will be waiting. She also wants to see him. A little while later, the girl receives a reply, and the guy writes that he was waiting for her answer and could have left right now, but decided to write first. He was close enough to Grizz that he didn't need to answer, but he still wanted to write, and perhaps he would come to Grizz the day after she received the letter. The guy claims that he wants to tell her so many interesting things, so he suggests meeting and talking about everything they couldn't talk about before. He'll be in a hurry and arriving soon. Cassia realizes this place reminds her of her hometown, even though she hasn't been there in 10 years. And could she really have been so busy? Until she can live like she does now and see her children, it won't be enough for her to be satisfied with life. The lady also wonders if there is anyone else as greedy and good as she. In this life, she won't let it go just because she rested and ate well, but if she were to fall back into eternal sleep, she asks the Lord to send her to heaven. A little while later, the butler knocks on the door of the room, and the girl tells him to come in. The man claims that the gentleman is also there, and he said that he would like to discuss something with the lady regarding the land inspection. Cassia immediately gets out of bed and thinks that this can't be, and why is he still worried about her? The main character replies that it is fine and let them come in. But when they enter the room, the butler again sees the lady in bed and says that he will probably go. The Baron then approaches his wife, and the girl asks what is the matter. But before he can say anything, the lady asks if she should really look after the lands. The Baron recalls how the butler claimed that the master could not do this without the mistress. The girl realizes that she really had no intention of doing anything, and if she thought about it, Mrs. Margaret had worked just as hard as she had, and would soon work herself into eternal sleep. But she has 5 children, and it would be worth helping her, after which the girl asserts that, of course, she can. After which she asks if the guy heard about the arrival of Viscount Gavilan. Since he is arriving tomorrow, the lady asks if it would be okay if she took a look around the land after greeting him. The Baron at the same moment asserts that, of course, and let her do what she wants. But at the same moment, she corrects herself and asserts that she can do as she wishes. Cassia says that if that's all, then he can go, as she's going to take a little nap. At this point, the guy insists that it's not that cold outside and asks if she, by any chance, wants to, but he doesn't finish the sentence, and the main character wonders if it really looks like she's doing nothing, after which she wraps herself in a blanket and claims that she wants to sleep. A little while later, the girl is already waiting for her friend and asks how long it has been since they saw each other. The Baron asks if she has always been so close to Viscount Gavilan, to which she replies that yes, and she didn't even understand who he was, because the guy was constantly hanging around, so she was surprised to learn that he was a viscount. Although his speech was a little rough and did not sound like that of a nobleman, to her he was a kind and good friend. Zester wonders if, judging by her words, she's really sure they're friends. The protagonist asks what he's talking about, and if they're not friends, then who are they? Her interlocutor thinks for a moment, and the main character wonders if this is the only thing the Baron thinks about. She also wonders what is wrong with him and whether he really sees her like that, to which the guy replies that it's not like that at all. He also turns to his darling and asks her to listen to him. But at that very moment, the main character interrupts him and claims that it looks like her friend has arrived. When the carriage stops, a blue-eyed blonde man with a refined appearance steps out of it. Zester extends his hand to the Viscount and thanks him for his visit. The main character also waves to the guy. Zester says he has been looking forward to the Viscount's visit, and the Viscount replies that he is immensely grateful for their hospitality. Zester understands that if the Viscount can be compared to a deer, then he is like a wild boar bending over on a winter day. The blonde man asks if he can greet his old friend, to which his interlocutor replies that he should not be shy, since he does not even know how long his wife waited for the Viscount. But at that very moment, the guy runs up to the main character and hugs her. He claims that he missed her so much that he thought he would fall into eternal sleep. But at that very moment, the Viscount grabs the Baron by the hand and screams at him to control himself. The guy asks what he's talking about, and the main character tells the Baron that so much time has passed that the Viscount was simply impatient to see her. Before she came to Grizz, she couldn't even say goodbye to him properly, because she was busy inheriting the title. And yet she must draw the line, for she is no longer the Count's daughter, but the mistress of the House of Grizz, so let him show politeness. The Viscount immediately admits his guilt and asserts that he owes the Baron an apology as well. The main character wonders if he's going to get angry at her, and Zester is holding back with all his might. A little while later, the main character is sitting with a guy at a table. She realizes that it's strange to see him like this again after 10 years, and it's like a new feeling. The Viscount then only sighs and says that this is truly unbearable. The main character, shocked, asks him why he's crying. He wonders if she wouldn't cry if she were him, wondering if this land really is an estate. And secondly, what does she eat there to survive? Cassia says it's winter now, and if they plant something and nurture it with care, they can eat it later to survive. The boy immediately exclaims that the Baron is a war hero. So what kind of attitude is this? He had heard the story about the villages, but he could never have imagined that everything would be like in the slums. The main character wonders what he means by like in the slums, since the people there work hard and live well. She also wonders if he could stop saying things like that, since if anyone heard, they might think they were begging for a living. The lady wonders what is wrong with people who work so hard, after which the young man apologizes and claims that he was just so angry when he thought of her suffering in such a place. He really doesn't want to say it, but he can't stop being angry, because where did the lady go wrong? To be honest, hasn't His Majesty overstepped his bounds? If he really is a war hero, then why are they treating him like this? Is there any point in selling someone's daughter to save face? He claims she thought so too and believes he's being quite selfish. The guy claims that he thinks life here is very hard for her. He also asks about the Baron and whether he is a good man, but the girl suggests changing the subject. The Viscount realizes that it is true that this guy has been on the battlefield all the time, so he should be grateful that at least he doesn't beat his wife. But now he says he doesn't think this guy is a good guy either. She's being forced to act like an all-knowing wife, but pretending she isn't. If he were a decent man, would she really agree that His Majesty was crossing all boundaries? After this, the guy finally smiles and claims that he has a gift for her. The young man claims that she will definitely like it, and the main character asks what it is. The guy claims he hasn't told anyone yet, but he bought it for her. The lady asks what it is, and her interlocutor asks if she still remembers that his father was in the magic industry and his efforts finally paid off. After which he hands the lady his gift, and the girl thinks about the magical industry. There is an opinion that in ancient times magic was practiced, and that powerful magicians existed at that time. But as time passed, those magicians gradually disappeared without a trace. Over time, the practice of magic fell into oblivion, and the mages felt guilty towards humanity and scattered their magic in the form of many gems, thus allowing the origins of magic to reach future generations. Gavilon, located next to her hometown of Roberno, was an even more desolate estate. However, countless magical gems were buried there, and in the world abandoned by magicians, the gems were just stones. The former Viscount Gavilan gathered scientists and organized a large-scale study of those stones. The result was the creation of magical engineering, combining machines and the energies emanating from the gems. Her shrewd father, Count Ruberno, joined Gavilan. Thus, the new industry of magical engineering began to attract attention, and those who coveted the gems set their sights on the lands of Gavilan. And so a great war broke out in the territory of Gavilan, and her father, in need of troops, eventually contacted her. How could the lady know that before she had dared to tell this to Zester, who was still like a stranger to her, he had already sent troops to Gavilan? Having won at Gavilan, Zester expected fair compensation from his wealthy father-in-law. As a reward, he received a high-grade mana gem the size of his fist. The boy claimed it was considered the most valuable gem in Gavilan. Rumor has it that its price will skyrocket once the magical industry develops sufficiently. The main character, looking at this, almost cried and thought that there are no boundaries when it comes to this guy, because he is treated like a simpleton. And the lady thought, is this a joke? Because how can she now look her husband in the eyes? Father truly believed in the success of the industry, but in the end, he failed in using high-grade mana gems containing complex magic, and thus the magic industry fell. The main character thinks how stupid Drayan and her father are, and they shouldn't involve her in their plans if they are going to ruin everything. At that very moment, the butler knocks on the door of the room and addresses the lady, and also states that the master asks her to come down, as it is time for dinner. A little while later, they are already sitting at the table, and the main character looks at all this with a little surprise. The chef says the main dish for today is baked chicken, and they've taken plenty of time to cook it, so he asks you to enjoy it. The boy also tells the lady that he asked the butler to serve her milk with honey, and he heard that in Ruberno she always drank it. The lady understands that they have worked hard to prepare all these dishes, and to be honest, she did not expect them to try so hard. The cook claims that the Baron and the butler prepared a feast to welcome Viscount Gavilan, and they ordered him to serve everything. The main character, turning to her husband, wonders if this is all his plan. Even milk is considered a luxury in Grizz. The cook asks what it is, and if there's anything she doesn't like. But at that very moment, the Viscount asks if the Baron usually pays so much attention to food, and she looks surprised. The main character is about to say something, and the guy asks if the Baron hasn't provided her with such luxurious dishes since she arrived there, and she must have never tried anything like this. Drayan says that the Baroness is not picky about the servants, and therefore did not complain about the food. Ruberno is, that's why he's in charge. And of course, for the Baron, it would be normal food, but for the Baroness, it's unusual. The cook immediately apologizes and says that instead of saying that the gentleman was tactless, he should have taken care of serving the dishes. Of course, he had to prepare everything, keeping their preferences in mind. The protagonist then says that the Viscount must be aware of the state of affairs in Grizz. The land is barren and desolate, and most residents can't even think about luxury food. They live on the estate with the Baron, so it's only natural to organize such dinners. But is there any point in doing this, knowing how much people suffer? She would be disappointed if the Baron ate like that, and even if he wanted to pamper her, she would refuse. Lucas had done nothing wrong either, so there was no need to bow her head, and she was truly touched to receive such dishes on the occasion of her friend's arrival. She still remembers what he cooked for her when she arrived, and it was fish pie. She's confident he used high-quality fish, and the lady is quite impressed by his culinary skills. All these dishes are perfectly suited to her tastes, and lately she's always looking forward to what she'll be served. Therefore, he should not neglect his skills, and she is always grateful to him for food. The cook tells the lady it's such an honor, but then asks how she knew his name, after which he says it doesn't matter, and it's simply a pointless question. But the girl asks how she cannot know the name of the person who prepares her food. In any case, she really appreciates his hard work, so he shouldn't worry too much about what the guy agrees to. The girl also thanks the Baron and claims that she knows that he prepared everything with care. But Viscount Gavilan said he would take care of her, so she would prefer if he didn't talk so much. The Baron immediately asserts that this is not so, and that this situation has caused inconvenience to the Viscount. So from now on, he'll be more attentive. The protagonist thanks him, but insists that's enough, after which she looks at her friend. The guy thinks he was a little cheeky, then turns to the boss and claims that it concerns him too, because he was too harsh on him, to which the boss replies that everything is fine. Zester then thanks him for being strict with him, and although it may not suit his tastes, he hopes that the Viscount will like it, after which he thanks him. A little while later, the Baron realizes that the more he looks at the Viscount, the more pain he feels, but it forces him to think clearly. Today, he has taken his place again, so he should be content with having such a kind and beautiful wife. But the guy also wonders why his heart aches so much, and whether he is going crazy. The man then turns to the butler and asks why she's wearing such revealing clothing, and that every time he sees her, she wears fewer and fewer layers. His interlocutor replies that it's probably because winter in Grizz is different from winter in Ruberno. In the south, everyone wears less clothes in winter, and it's a shame that in Grizz the winter is harsher. The Baron insists that they need to buy a thick wool coat, since winter has just begun, but he can no longer bear to see the girl wearing it, to which he agrees. Zester also tells him to send the coat with a note stating that he was worried she would be cold. But the butler asks if he can take it to her himself. His master replies that's not what he means. And the butler says that perhaps he's overstepping the mark, but wouldn't it be better to express his feelings more sincerely? He is so sorry that he is the only one who knows that the master really cares about his wife, and he should be more honest. Besides, since they had already slept together the first night, then wouldn't it be better for the couple to continue eating and sleeping together? There was a misunderstanding regarding Vita, but the gentleman needed to somehow get closer to their mistress and not remain silent. So today, he has to sleep in the mistress's room, which surprises the guy, after which he claims that he is still studying, so he can't. He will hear a lot of terrible remarks from Cassia, so he can't yet. But his interlocutor claims that he didn't mean that they should do something with her. And is the Baron really like an animal? The guy asks what he meant then, and the man replies that it is customary for couples to sleep in the same bed. And this doesn't mean they have to make love every day. Let him put his inappropriate thoughts aside and just lie next to her and talk. The guy is shocked after this and thinks how he can break into Cassia's room. At this time, the Viscount goes after the main character and asks her to forgive him. He also says what a mean girl she is, because he is not some stranger, but one of her closest friends, and now she is taking her husband's side, although she has only known him for a month. The girl replies that this is not the problem, because the problem is his reputation and what they will think of him. The young man replies that they can think what they want and asks if she really likes that food. The main character replies that she is no longer the daughter of Count Ruberno, and now that she is a baroness, how can he really complain about the food? The girl also says that she is also worried about him, because he also inherited territories. But how can he still act so immature? That's why she can't stop worrying since he arrived in Grizz. The young man wonders why he feels like the lady has matured so much. She sounds just like his mother. Cassia asks how long he plans to stay, as he can't leave his domain for long. He replies that it will take about 2 weeks, and the main character asks why it is taking so long. The young man asks if she's displeased, and she replies that she can't say she's displeased, but rather that she's simply worried. The Viscount insists that he's carefully prepared his territories for this, so she shouldn't treat him like a child. The guy also claims that he really wanted to see her, and also, he brought this thing, thinking it might help him. The main character wonders if it's an ancient language, and wonders if he had a nightmare, and she'll be upset if he says so. The guy claims that these ancient words are engraved on the mana gem, so he thinks that there might be some kind of magic contained within it, but they are just symbols, so they are very difficult to translate. The girl asks if he hasn't spent money on scientists, so why is he asking her without consulting them? He replies that it's a little weird to reveal that the gem might have magic in it, and they're already working together, but they can't really believe it all. The main character says it's true, but she asks if it says, "What a riddle for those who give to the god Guamyong to their grandchildren." The boy insists that this assumption is engraved on the stone he gave her. Cassia says yes, and the magic that could emit light was sealed away, and it is also a hopeless light in the darkness. Drayan says that's true, and that sentence is easily translated, but he has no idea what the next sentence means. The girl reads what it says. Too much regret for a weak creature, so he will give her a chance to repent. He will pay the god of hope an excellent price. He is a new image of repentance, so he chooses it. And the main character wonders what this should mean. The guy asks what it is, and the girl replies that she is not sure what it means. But the young man claims that it is so amazing that she can translate it and understand the magical symbols. The girl understands that this is why the magic department failed, because it is so difficult to understand the true purpose of the mana gem that was sealed by powerful forces. The mana gem, whose true purpose is unknown, was a reward after the war. The protagonist approaches her friend and asks if he knows about the magical industry and whether he thinks they will succeed. The young man replies, "Of course," and everyone is completely satisfied, after which he asks if she's interested. The protagonist understands that she will fall, and even if she can't prevent it, this time the boy mustn't get the gem. The main character realizes that she was only seeing Drayan off, so the test will start quite late. She worked hard to take care of her family, just like Mrs. Margaret, who worked herself to the point of falling into an eternal sleep, so she must find a way to help so that she can rest. The girl understands that, as expected, she must ask Zester to begin checking the lands tomorrow. But when the main character is about to leave the room, then she immediately sees her husband and screams that he scared her. The guy is shocked, apologizes, and asks if he really scared her. He also asks where she's going at such a time, and the girl replies that she was going to see him. The Baron asks why, and the lady points out that they were supposed to start the inspection today, and if he doesn't mind, she would like to conduct it tomorrow. The guy asks why she suddenly changed her mind, because if they start immediately after Gavilan's arrival, it won't be too late. The girl suggests that he go inside and not talk there, and then he apologizes for the intrusion. But when the guy comes in, he closes the door very hard, and at that very moment, he sees that the painting falls from the wall. The Baron deftly grabs her and asks his wife if everything is okay, even though she almost got hurt. The girl replies, "Lord, and it's all because of him," after which he apologizes, and the main character replies that it's okay. It's not the first time he can't control his power. Zester wonders if she saw him lose control. Then the lady tells him to sit down, and the guy agrees. Cassia argues that it's not that Gavilan will stay, but that he will stay longer than she thought. It was not long before she became the mistress of this estate, and she told him so. The Baron states that she doesn't seem to want to break up with this guy, and the main character says that's why she thought they wouldn't be late, which means they should start tomorrow, after which she asks if he doesn't mind. The guy says he will do as she says, and then asks if she was really going to come to him to say this. The lady replies yes, and then asks why he came there. Zester replies that they are married, and what reason do they need to meet? Cassia says that's not what she meant, and that it's just a little strange to come at this hour. Then the girl asks if he really came there to do this. The lady sighs and realizes that nothing can be done, after which she begins to undress. The guy turns to his wife in shock, and the lady asks if something is wrong. Her interlocutor argues that it is perfectly natural for a married couple to sleep in the same bed, and they should not do this every day. They should leave these thoughts and just lie down next to each other. That's what he meant. The main character says okay, after which the Baron awkwardly walks to the other side of the bed. Cassia argues that if he wants to say something, he should just say it, but the guy only remains silent in response to this, after which the girl claims that she heard that Lady Vita is still cautious, so he leaves her to him. The Baron says that Vita has offended her, so it is the lady who should deal with her. Then the girl says that she has to leave tomorrow, and she also asks to leave him with her friend. The guy immediately claims that his darling must have misunderstood his relationship with Vita, and he knows he's at fault. But everything is really wrong. Cassia says okay, she gets it. Then he asks if she's sure, and she says yes. The Baron thanks her and says that before tomorrow's inspection, it would be better if she dresses for the weather, since it is already winter. He asked the butler to bring her some suitable clothes so that she would be dressed better tomorrow. But when the lady doesn't answer, the guy, shocked, asks if she's really asleep, and when he turns around to look at her, he realizes that she has already fallen asleep. He really doesn't know if she's human or an angel, but when he reaches out to her, he immediately pulls away, and she realizes he's about to go crazy. The main character immediately begins to move in her sleep, and she puts her foot right between his legs. The guy is shocked and lies down on the bed. Looking at his wife, he understands that if he wants to live a long life, he will have to sleep next to her until the end of their days. The next day, the main character is already inspecting the lands. She sees a cute calf and tells them to take better care of themselves so they don't get sick. This may be problematic now, but bringing in a livestock specialist will be beneficial in the future. After which, the girl approaches another shop and asks if they really made such beautiful jewelry themselves. She also claims she'll buy one and wear it with pleasure. She also claims that Grizz has a small population, so her work will definitely sell better in other lands. The guy understands that even though he has been a baron for the last few years, his wife is apparently much better at studying the situation that has developed in the territory. The girl claims that the situation will not be very good, but she thinks that they will adapt to housework, and maybe they should support them during the winter season. Zester states that he thinks this is where things can end, and then suggests they return. But the main character points to another house and suggests going there one last time, to which he agrees. When the woman living in this house sees the baron and baroness, she runs out to them and asks how they could have walked all this way to their miserable little town. Cassia asks what pathetic means, since she was just heading to the temple and smelled such a wonderful aroma, so it's a pity they were late for dinner. The girl also claims that she will come again to eat, and the woman says that she will serve the lady well. Cassia says that it is not the matter, and her food. But at the same moment, the lady notices that she almost started to cry, after which she claims that it seems that something got into her eye. The baron immediately turns her towards him and asks if the lady is all right, to which she replies that everything is fine. At this time, the main character turns to the lady and asks what is wrong with her hands, because they are swollen. The woman replies that it's nothing. The girl says that she must have a lot of part-time jobs. The lady gives her a gold ring and claims that it is winter now, so there are not many visitors, and she cannot do much. The woman immediately cries out to her mistress that she can't. The main character asks her to take it, as she too has taken many things from the estate, but next time she'll have to treat her. And let a woman not overwork herself, because if she undermines her health, she will only lose everything. The woman claims that she simply cannot accept this and runs after the mistress. But the main character immediately turns to her dear one and says that they need to go quickly. But at that very moment, someone else runs up and shouts at the baroness. This man introduces himself as James from the neighboring kingdom of Calypson. The man also wonders if he can enjoy the honor of greeting the angelically beautiful princess. He was looking for a place to settle in these unfamiliar lands, so he is incredibly happy that he finally found the strongest and wisest head of the lands. He's also starting a business, and the young man asks the lady if she's not worried he might not have enough funds for the initial investment. If the lovely lady could help, he might be able to help her with the inheritance. The baron looks at him menacingly, but at that very moment, Margaret, to whom the lady gave the ring, begins to beat him and screams, "What kind of a rude man is this? So let him apologize quickly." The main character realizes that Mrs. Margaret is once again allowing those who don't have money to stay for free. The woman hits him and claims that she can't believe it, but at that moment the man pulls something out of his pocket, and he says that the lady should take a look at it first, because he is sure that it will be a great success. The baron cries out, wondering if he's really making fun of them, but the heroine immediately tells her darling to wait, wondering if that's a wig. The girl understands that he is still a little sloppy, but it is definitely a wig. And did someone really come up with these 10 years ago? Cassia thinks that it can't be, and now people can't understand the true value of wigs. But fortunately, in 10 years, they will become very popular in Vichy. Zester cries out, wondering who he's waving this shaggy piece of trash at. But his companion asks the baron to listen, because it's not trash, it's human hair. After this, the guy is about to take out his sword, but the main character turns to something dear, and when he turns around, he sees her with a different hair color. The merchant then says that the lady has figured out how to use it. The protagonist replies that yes, and she thought it was meant to be. The merchant says he's so grateful the lady recognized his work, and she looks stunning with red hair too. Cassia argues that women of noble families are expected to dress appropriately, so they cannot change their hairstyles as they please. Sometimes she thinks about cutting her hair or dyeing it an unusual color, and many girls think this way. As the merchant said, this could be a great success, after which the girl approaches the man and asks if he will sign a contract with her. The girl understands that in 10 years, she will fall into an eternal sleep from an unknown illness, and she thought that the only thing she could change was to finally start living properly. In this life, James may come to Grizz again. The lady realizes that she wouldn't have seen the value in the wigs either, and it's a shame it will take 10 years before he meets Viscount Vish, so it would be nice if things got better. After all, even Rael will one day become a baron when the lands become rich. The lady understands that it is good, and they will try to do wigs, and she said that she would have fun in this life. But is she working too hard? She looks at the ancient language and realizes that she doesn't even make money from translating, so she needs to hurry and send them back, after which she looks at one of the sentences and understands what is written there. Give a chance and repent, poor ones, marked by regret and remorse. The God of opportunity will accept the price of the favor shown, and then you will begin a new chapter of repentance. The girl understands that this sounds like giving a chance, and what kind of magic is this? So did Zester really receive the mana gem? At that moment, the Baron turns to his wife and says it's him. The main character wonders why he keeps coming in the middle of the night, and he came yesterday too. The main character asks what it is, and he asks if he can come in. Cassia mentally replies that no, but tells him that of course, after which she looks at the thing in the Baron's hands and wonders what it is. The man immediately puts this thing on the main character and claims that the coat that she brought with her from Roberno does not look suitable for winter. He asked the butler to bring her a coat, and it is not as good as those sold in the capital, but it will still help to keep her warm. Cassia wonders if he will give it to her, and then asks why. The guy replies that he just wanted to buy a coat for his wife, who is shaking from the cold, so she shouldn't neglect him. The girl replies that she is not being disdainful, but was simply surprised and did not think that she would receive such a thing from the Baron. Her interlocutor asks what she knows to think that, and it seems as if they have lived together for more than 10 years. The main character claims that it is her fault and, however, thanks him, and also claims that she will wear it. Cassia realizes it's amazing they can talk like this, but it's all about the gift. So isn't she the only one who's changed in the last 10 years? The lady also understands that something is wrong there, and she was the one who kept silent when it didn't concern her. The guy even came to her just like that, and in a past life, this would have been impossible to imagine. Cassia realizes that this is indeed strange, but the girl thinks that it does not matter, because she can just go to bed. But when the lady goes to bed, the guy turns to her, after which, stuttering, he tries to say the word hug, and then he cries out asking if he can hug her. The main character immediately gets up and reluctantly begins to take off her clothes. But the guy tells her to wait, because he thinks she misunderstood him. After all, he wanted to know if he could hug her while they slept. The girl, shocked, wondered if he had really become a different person. But this is caring Zester, finally expressing his emotions. And he also loves his wife and children. The lady also understands that she can't imagine such a thing, and she feels somehow awkward doing such a thing to him. The Baron claims he simply didn't know if she would be comfortable, and the main character claims that, as he said, they are married. So why does he need permission for such a small request? The guy asks if she really doesn't mind even if he hugs her. Cassia replies that it is better than being with a husband who does not even speak, let alone hug his wife. Zester asks if such people really exist, and the main character only smiles through force, after which the guy still apologizes and hugs her, pressing her to his chest. The lady is a little surprised, and the Baron asks if something is wrong, to which she replies that no, and everything is fine. The girl understands that it is impossible for him to know, but there was a time when she was the same, although she would not like to admit it. As soon as she saw Zester for the first time, her heart couldn't stop pounding. She thought his animalistic features were incredibly sexy, the indifference in his eyes so intense. She couldn't believe she found even the smallest details attractive. She saw him like this, but she didn't know anything, and the girl thinks that it's so naive. The lady also wonders why he is embarrassed to hug his wife. The girl turns to the Baron and claims that he must listen to her carefully because she has a request. The guy asks what kind of request this is and offers to tell him because he will listen to every word. After which, the lady asks if they will have children, but when he does not answer, the lady turns to him again. Zester immediately cries out that she's right, and they definitely will. Lady asks if he'll love them, and will he also look after them, cherish them and play with them, and also to stroke them if they are suddenly frightened by thunder, and it could be near them. Zester asks if this is really a request, to which the lady replies that yes, and she hopes that the children will grow up surrounded by their father's boundless love. The guy replies that there is no need to ask for such a thing, and he promises that he will be a good father to their children. It may be a little awkward at first, but he will make every effort. However, when he looks at his wife, he realizes that she has fallen asleep again. The guy also thinks why she asked to love their children as a favor, and she is just like an angel. A short time later, the Baron awakens to the lady calling someone. The girl says Rayleigh's name and claims to miss him. In a dream, the main character sees the Baron and wonders if he can really smile like that. Afterward, she asks God to allow her to live a happy life with a loving husband and sweet children. The next morning, the main character wakes up and realizes that it was a dream. But when she looks around her, she doesn't see anyone and understands that yesterday morning the Baron was definitely next to her. But then the girl realizes that she needs to pull herself together, because what did she expect after such a dream? A little while later, the butler realizes that he cannot believe that the master is already thinking about leaving the estate, and that he really had a fight with his wife. The Baron hands over a piece of paper and tells the butler to send it to Viscount Viche, as he said he could start right away. The butler asks if something has happened to the lady, to which the young man replies no. He then begins to say something else, but the Baron repeats that he said nothing happened. His interlocutor claims that this is not the case, and asks why the gentleman does not reconsider Viche's request for reinforcements, since the reward is somewhat inappropriate for the risks and the troops needed. Zester claims that everything is fine, and this is the fastest way to gain territory, but his interlocutor asks why the master is in such a hurry. The man remembers his wife's words that night and understands that she is not to blame, because if he is her beloved, he must be an aristocrat. The guy is sure that he is simply amazing and wonders if Gavilan knows this rail. The man also thinks that he is pathetic, and at such a time, it is better to go to battle. His interlocutor tells the Baron that, as he has already noted, if something is bothering him regarding the lady, then he should talk to her, because if he keeps everything to himself, then later he will begin to regret it, and it will be much more difficult to recover. The Baron says he already said it wasn't like that, but Paul insists he's been serving him long enough that he can tell just by looking into his eyes that it looks like he's escaping reality. His interlocutor replies that everything is wrong, but at that very moment, someone bursts into his room and screams at Zester, calling him by name. The guy recalls how the main character said she planned to kick Vita out tomorrow. Meanwhile, the maid addresses Zester menacingly. The boy asks Vita if she's forgotten why his wife punished her and what she's doing. Zester realizes that she only told her to stay away for 1 month. At this time, the girl asks how he could do this to her, and her interlocutor asks if she's in her right mind. Vita wonders if he's the one who's lost his mind, because he's the one who's lost his mind, so let him tell her how he could throw her out without hesitation, even if it doesn't bother him. How could he allow another woman to interfere? And why does the mistress also behave this way? The butler turns to Miss Vita, and she screams that she just wanted to turn her in, so why did she pester her? And why doesn't Zester stop his wife? But the Baron tells Vita to shut her mouth, because he is still several years older than her. The girl claims that her parents will be very disappointed when they find out about this, and doesn't he remember how many times his parents asked him to take care of her? But this is how it all turned out, and she is so confused that she is simply speechless. The man realizes he's speechless. Their positions in their youth were a landowner's daughter and a farmer's son. Vita grew up like a noblewoman in a small village, and he was her favorite toy. One day, the girl insisted she wanted to ride a horse, so Zester should lie down. The boy thought he hated it. The girl pointed at the other boys and claimed that they weren't listening to her, so he should beat them up quickly. A little while later, the girl told the Baron that she needed to practice if she wanted to date Holland, so he should kiss her faster. Zester screamed, wondering if she'd lost her mind, and the girl wondered if he'd just yelled at her. Afterwards, she complained, and he was punished for making Vita cry. The girl was the daughter of a landowner, and he was their daughter's servant, and to escape this miserable life, he became a mercenary. The girl screams at this point, wondering if he's even listening to her. The guy rises from his seat, wondering why he has to put up with this, but the girl immediately screams at him to choose between her and his mistress. The Baron, shocked, wonders what she's talking about, and the butler claims that he can no longer tolerate this complete disrespect, so let her leave. But when he opens the door, he sees the lady in front of him and asks what she is doing there. The girl replies that she came to talk to the Baron, but it seems she was in the way, so she will return later. The Baron screams in shock at his wife and realizes that she has definitely misunderstood everything again, so how can he explain himself, since it's not even his fault? At this time, the butler looks menacingly at his master, as if asking why he does not follow her. The guy remembers his words, that if he keeps everything to himself, he will start to regret it later. The main character realizes that everything is as she thought, and Vita forces him to choose. But at that very moment, Zester runs up to the lady and hugs her. Cassia asks what he is doing, and the guy screams, asking her not to leave. The girl thinks that he is telling her not to leave, but what will happen if she leaves? After which, the lady tells him that she is uncomfortable, and he asks if she will leave. Cassia asks why he told her not to leave, and the guy replies that she was angry, and if he lets her run away like that, she will get everything wrong again. The main character asks if there was anything she should understand, after which she even offers to talk, but first asks to let go. After which, the guy does so, and the lady invites him to speak. The Baron immediately, with a smile on his face, declares that he chooses her, and the main character can't help but laugh and asks if he's joking. The guy seriously replies that he is not joking, and he chooses only her, because even if the heavens fall, he will choose her. Kaja sees Vita behind her, almost in tears, and when the Baron turns to her, he wonders why she's acting like this. The girl wonders how Zester could have done such a thing. The man simply approaches her and tells her not to address him so informally. She should only call him Baron or Sir. When the lady tries to call him by his first name again, he insists he's already warned her. The guy realizes it's time to end the relationship, as he's no longer her slave. He begins to repeat that he has said many times that their relationship is no longer what it used to be, and it is her own fault that she crossed the line. Therefore, let her return to where she came from immediately. The girl, shocked, asks him what he's talking about, and the guy replies that he thinks she should have said yes, and not just what. But he doesn't want to continue fighting with his wife over her, so let Vita go back. The girl, shocked, asks if he's serious, and he, looking her straight in the eyes, replies that he is very serious. Vita addresses him informally again, and when the guy corrects her, the girl asks if he will regret it, to which he replies that he thinks it will be the best thing he has ever done in his life. Kasia, looking at her husband, understands that this facial expression is usually seen on people who are uncomfortable. At this point, the guy turns to his wife and asks her to leave, and then he says goodbye to Vita altogether. A little while later, the main character wonders why he would change so much. The girl was sure Vita would have stayed there for another 2 years, but he let her go so easily. Wasn't it obvious they were more than just friends? The Baron apologizes, insisting it was long overdue. The girl realizes they say you can fall into eternal sleep by doing something you wouldn't normally do, and shouldn't he have fallen into eternal sleep instead of her? The Baron says that he shouldn't have bothered her, to which the lady replies that everything is fine, and the guy asks why she came. Kasia replies that the Viscount is quite bored with being at the estate all the time, so she wanted to ask him to give him a tour of the property. The guy says that if he's so bored, he should just go back quickly. And what is he even doing, staying there for so long? Isn't he staying late because of her? The main character replies that this is not so, and the Baron replies, offended, that of course it is not so. Kasia wonders what is wrong with him, after which the man claims that he will leave tomorrow, and the lady asks if it is so sudden, and also where he will go. Zester claims that Viscount Vish has asked him for support many times already, and it is said that the barbarians have captured part of his lands and also caused great damage. The main character thinks that this is true. Around this time, he went on his first business trip, and as expected, time flies. From this trip onwards, he and Zester won't have much time to meet, and the lady asks what the compensation is, to which he replies that he will receive about 500,000 silver immediately after the victory, and he wants to give them the same amount again. The girl, shocked, asks what he is saying, because he cannot afford this, to which he replies that after the victory, they will receive more than 500,000 silver, and the lady asks how long ago he made this decision, because has he ever told her about it? And who even goes into battle with that kind of money? The lady understands that Visha is a wealthy young man, but he's the one who stands to gain the most. The young man, however, insists that this compensation is better than the previous one, and he's been working diligently with the Viscount for a long time. The main character wonders what the point of working for a long time is, because they need to be sure that they can earn money. Her interlocutor says she doesn't care about money, but the girl replies that money isn't the only problem, since he doesn't want to go into battle. Zester asks what that means, since he's only going there to earn money. As she knows, these lands have low income, so it is not surprising that he has to earn more. And there's also the issue of pork and beef, which Gavilan mentioned. If you want more sugar when you drink milk, you have to work harder. The main character, shocked, asks what he's talking about, and the guy turns to his wife. He claims he's well aware this place isn't up to her standards, and he wouldn't like it either, but he's doing everything he can. He's also trying his best to make her forget about where she used to live. He can't make her think that way, so he thought she was bored. But it seems he is more selfish than she thought. Kaja claims she doesn't understand what he's talking about, and has she ever cried, desperate to go home. But he claims the lady is bored, to which the girl replies that she really doesn't want to go back. Then, her interlocutor asks, what about that guy named Rail? After all, she said that she missed him. And the main character, in shock, asks how he found out about Rail. Her interlocutor claims that he is not trying to offend her, but whoever she met in the past. The girl immediately cries out for him to tell her how he found out about Rail. The man replies that he didn't, and that she simply mentioned the name about 28 times while she was sleeping. He was even more surprised, but he would treat her better and make sure that she would forget him, so he asks her to forget him, even if she misses this guy. But at the same moment, the main character replies that this is impossible because she has never met such nice and good men as Rail. She was so surprised to see how much a child could grow in a short time, and he could immediately notice when she was in a bad mood. Then the boy would start talking to her to make her feel better, and then the lady would be truly lonely, so she would truly appreciate him. The girl also claims that he was also very handsome, just like his father. That child's father had a lot of problems, but he was really handsome, so she's glad he grew up to be like his father. When the lady wants to say something more, her interlocutor replies that he understands and asks her to stop. The main character wonders if he's jealous, after which her interlocutor asks why she pays so much attention to him, and the girl asks if it doesn't irritate him to live with such an unreliable lady. The Baron asks who said that. The lady realizes that it is none other than himself in the past, after which she claims that it just occurred to her, and she thinks it's a good thing she talked in her sleep, since he decided to be kinder to her. The guy replies that he would have been kinder even if she hadn't said anything in her sleep, but the girl replies that that's too much. Zester claims that, judging by her facial expression, she does not believe him, but the girl replies that this is not so, and her interlocutor asks what he can do for her, and let her tell him if she is lonely. He's not very eloquent, so you won't be able to talk much, but you can go out and get some fresh air. The main character understands that this is what she loves most, and he is so similar to her son, so who would have thought that she would be so lucky? Zester claims that he is slow-witted, so he might not notice how she is feeling, but he will try. And if she doesn't like it, she should just say so. Kasia notes that the more she thinks about it, the stranger it all seems. This man has been with her for 10 years, but then the girl realizes that this is not the case, and no matter how she looks at him, it does not seem like he is pretending. Kasia claims that this land is beautiful, and the air is good, and the people there are nice. There is nothing to complain about, so don't be so scared when they talk about the land. The guy asks if this is true, to which the lady replies that yes, and there is no one like Rail yet. She would simply like to have a son like him someday, someone who is sweet and kind. The girl also tells the Baron that she knows he's in a hurry, but wonders if he could put it off for a week, since Gavilan is staying with them. If he leaves, the lady will be left alone. The Baron claims that now that she has mentioned it, he will agree, and the girl invites him to talk about work after Gavilan's departure. The guy asks if this is what she really wants, to which she replies, "Of course." Her interlocutor thanks her again. He sheepishly asserts that he thinks they're very lucky that someone like her has become the mistress of the Grizz estate. Compared to her, he's not good enough in many ways, and as he runs away, he adds that he will try his best until the end of his days. A little while later, the butler stands in front of the door and realizes that the lady has never called him before. When he announces that he has arrived, the lady invites him to come in and sit down. The guy sees the mistress on the bed again, after which he only agrees. He also asks why the lady called him, and if something is wrong. Kasia points out that that's not the issue, and that she simply heard Viscount Vichy asking for support. She told the Baron to delay sending aid for a week. The butler immediately happily says that, as expected, he has postponed the departure date thanks to the lady's words. Kasia says that, by the way, she didn't ask about this because of Gavilan, because there is something about the agreement that bothers her, The girl also asks if he knows the details regarding the contract, to which he replies, of course. But the lady asks if the compensation they are asking for isn't too much. As he knows, they don't have paid knights, and he always hires mercenaries when he goes to battle. But this time, they can't pay for their work. The man replies that this is true, and the gentleman worked for Viscount Vichy for a long time, but they continue to say that they would not like to spend a lot. Kasia says that maybe they should settle their money problems in a sober manner. The closer they are, the more money they need to get, and the butler says that the lady said it very well. The girl claims that if he thinks so, then why didn't he bring it to the Baron's attention? The man replies that it's not that he didn't initiate this conversation, it's just that he always refused to talk about problems with the troops. The main character replies that it is clear, and then she will personally talk to Viscount Vichy, and also wants the butler to help her. The man also replies that of course, and thinks that the lady is simply a savior. Kasia understood that Zester had gone to the battlefield many times, and she had some idea why his lands were so poor, but they did not really delve into each other's work. But she had already decided to simply enjoy herself and take everything possible from this life. But Viscount Vichy decided that Grizz was not good enough for him, so he treated him like a simpleton, and at least once in his life he should be properly punished. Vichy is a vast, fertile land in the north, and has been subject to frequent raids in the past. This winter, the Ryokan clan, which has the power to control monsters, attacked the locals of the Basque Mountains. And from then on, the clan had no intention of abandoning him. Though they were few in number, they still posed a serious threat. 3-meter monsters, resembling wolves and having 96 teeth in their mouths, were much more terrifying than many animals. Lacking any knights to recruit, Vichy was helpless against them. In times like these, Zester, who would do anything for money, was the best option. But a little while later, the Viscount looks at the letter and asks if this scoundrel is now on a leash. The protagonist wrote, greeted the Viscount, and insisted that there was something concerning his request that he should keep in mind. She asked him to understand that she could only greet him through this letter. She also wanted to know how much he suffered when his land was attacked. She wanted to help not only Zester, but also Grizz. At the same time, she knows how dangerous it is to go on a campaign and how many troops it requires. But the advance payment of 500,000 silver cannot even cover the cost of the mercenary soldiers, and the deal is very unfair, so she believes that there was a mistake. Let him be kind and reconsider the request again. After all, he has been cooperating with Grizz for quite a long time, and the lady believes that he will reconsider his offer, and she will kindly wait for his answer. The man says how annoying it is, then throws the letter at the servant, and he says that this girl is a cunning fox, and it was he who settled in the north, although he thinks that they are the ones who will lose money. But the servant says, "Sir, well, 500,000 really isn't enough, and how could Baron Grizz not send the letter?" The Viscount cries out, asking what the servant just said, and he is already on edge, because who would give so much money to compensate a wild dog? Because of his character, he most likely would not have been able to talk about this with his wife. But seeing how this girl behaved fearlessly, the butler claims that the madam's duties include regulating internal affairs. But his master cries out, asking why the butler is protecting her and whose side is he on anyway. His interlocutor tells the gentleman that this is not the issue, and he says how annoying it is. It was rude to think such a small sum was worth anything. He would have let it go. But that's how things turned out. The man thinks what a cunning fox she is, and since she's still young, he should have the right to talk to her face to face. The girl will get tired if he keeps pestering her. The butler claims that if the gentleman talks about this girl, he might make a mistake later, but he only asks what he is talking about and whether he can't stand still. They can't be sure whether it's changing or not, and even if the leash is taut, the animal already has an owner, and he will show everything to the butler. A little while later, the main character is already reading the response from the Viscount, and the butler is wondering what the lady is going to do now. He claims that he thinks that a personal meeting clearly does not bode well, and that it may be too much, but since he is older, he will give her advice. The main character says that it seems, without exaggeration, as if he is trying to convince her otherwise. Just from one letter, it is clear that he underestimates young ladies. If this had happened 10 years ago, they could have been robbed for that kind of money. But he is like a hooligan who doesn't know the basics of negotiations. The girl claims that she will write a letter that she would like to come, and also let him convey that they were personally invited, and that they will also go on the hike together. A little while later, the Baron cries out never, and the butler asks why. Zester claims that he can't believe that the lady wants to go to that dangerous place full of monsters and wild animals. The butler says, "Sir, if anyone were to hear him, they would think the Raken have seized Vish's territory. The lady will remain in the castle, which is quite far from the mountain range, but they must also take into account the distance between Vish and Grise." Then the butler suggests that he talk to the lady himself, because she wants to accept the invitation. The man says no way, and doesn't she look like she'll faint at the sight of the monster? The butler replies that it is clear, and a little while later, the main character approaches Dryan's room. The girl asks if she can come in, to which he agrees. When she enters, the Viscount is packing his things and states that, from what she can see, it looks like he'll have to return to Gavilan tomorrow, and he apologizes. The girl thinks what a relief this is, because it looked like she was almost throwing him out. She also says that it's nothing serious and asks why it happened so suddenly, because something really happened. The guy replies that it seems one of the valuable mana gems has gone missing, and the lady asks if it is really that valuable. Dryan replies that, of course, he is priceless. But why would he bother so much if it were otherwise? Kaja says that's the problem, but wonders how the stone could have disappeared so easily. The guy replies that he has the same question, because he placed all the valuable gems in Gavilan's fortress. They even used less powerful gems with sealing magic, and everything was tested by him and his older sister. There is no good in going back and forth, and he checked several times, but the older sister found that one was missing. The last time he checked, everyone was safe, and it must have happened when he left for Grise. The girl asks who could have stolen it, and the guy replies that he's not sure and doesn't even know if it was stolen. If they were planning to steal something, why steal it? Kaja realizes that this is true, and instead of stealing a useless stone that no one knows how to use, it would be better to take less valuable but more useful ones. The girl also asks what magic the stone contained. He replies that she translated the ancient language and asks to see it. He claims that this ancient language was engraved on that stone. It says, "Give a chance to the repentant who are full of regret, and the God of opportunity will accept the price of the mercy shown, and they will also get a chance to repent." The main character thinks that these words written on the stone were only theoretical, so it was very difficult to translate them. The girl also asks if there was a stone that disappeared after use, to which he replies that this could be the case. Then it means that someone found out what that stone was needed for and immediately used it. But stealing a gem really isn't that easy. The main character says it means it disappeared somewhere else. The Viscount asks what this means, and the girl replies that it is just a guess. And if you regret something, you will get a chance to repent. For example, for some reason they grew apart, and it is quite possible that he will want to somehow fix it. The girl thinks that although they broke off contact 10 years ago, their relationship has now improved, and she has been given the power to turn back time. Her interlocutor asks if she's really implying that the missing gem had the ability to reverse time. He replies that it's just a guess. Dryan claims that this makes sense, which means that if she were to go by her assumptions, someone from the future used it to go back to the past, and once it worked, the stone disappeared. So it turns out that in their time, the gem disappeared, to which the girl replies that she is not sure. The lady understands that if the reason for her return lies in this, then when she fell into eternal sleep, had Father and Dryan come to see her and conduct more research? But only she retained the memories, so the lady couldn't explain it. The girl says that first he should return to Gavilan and figure out what happened, and also not forget to contact her, to which he agrees. A short time later, the protagonist looks at her husband in shock. He claims that Vish is currently a rather dangerous place, so she'll accept the invitation as soon as the situation stabilizes. If she wants to visit, he'll try to sort things out as quickly as possible. But the main character says it's foolish to refuse a personal invitation. Her companion suggests not to worry about it, as he'll speak with the Viscount. Whatever she thinks, the path to the Viscount's lands is dangerous now. Kasia realizes what a fool he is, because the contract hasn't even been signed yet. She also insists that if he's going to go, he needs to hire soldiers first. He replies that, of course, he's only contacted those he knows, so he'll be back before dinner. It's cold outside, so let the lady dress warmly and don't forget to eat. But the main character wonders about the mercenaries' pay. The soldiers will think they'll be paid, so she asks if they have any money. The Baron replies that she doesn't need to worry about that, because they have worked together for many years, so they won't charge outrageous prices. The girl asks what if they are nominated, because they will be risking their lives on the battlefield, and there are times when you need to save a little, but now they need to spend. Her husband replies that that is enough, and he will do as he intended, and he also cries out that he is not that poor. A little while later, Lady Florent asks if the Baron no longer needs training, and then nothing can be done. The butler asks her to forgive him, and claims that they will compensate her for her hard work in monetary terms. But the woman replies that nothing, and she has already received the deposit without having done anything. So she leaves the gift and leaves, but the man asks what it is, to which the lady replies that he'll understand as soon as he sees it. When the butler opens the box, he sees chocolate. He states that he is grateful to the lady and will pass it on to the gentleman, to which the woman replies that it is nothing, and there is no need to explain in detail how to eat it. The butler wonders if chocolate can really be eaten in any other way, to which the girl replies that it is better to combine it with wine, and before going to bed, you will need to light romantic candles and drink a glass of wine. Florent understood that even if the foolish Baron didn't know about this, she was sure the butler had figured it all out. But Lady Florent didn't know that. Although Paul knew everything, he had become rather indifferent to such things since his wife had left this world. Outside her husband's room, the main character sighs and realizes that this time they need to talk about the troops properly. But as soon as the girl starts speaking, her husband immediately runs to the door and opens it. He apologizes and asks if he scared her. The girl replies that everything is fine and that she wanted to talk, so she asks if she can come in. Her interlocutor replies that it's fine, and anyway, it's time to go to bed, so he was going to go to her. The girl thinks that it's not that they don't have the right relationship, but every day is like too much, after which she claims that she'll sleep there today. Her interlocutor asks if she doesn't mind, since it might be uncomfortable there compared to her bedroom. Kasia replies that nothing, and adds that Viscount Gavilan will leave tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, and asks if the guy will come to see him off. Zester replies that, of course, and the main character thanks him for spoiling her, and when she wants to say something else, then she suddenly stops, seeing her husband's face, and he only insists it's dangerous. Kasia insists he's being unreasonable and wonders if he doesn't trust her. The girl is afraid that he will start talking nonsense about compensation, and the guy asks if they haven't already finished this conversation, because he doesn't want her to be too friendly with Viscount Vichy for the sake of it. Kasia claims she understands what he means, but whatever he thinks, the problem is that the compensation must be more than 1 million silver, and it is not a matter of long-term cooperation. Zester tells her not to worry, because he will take care of it. But at that very moment, the main character bites his lip and asks if he didn't know that there was nothing in the contract that would guarantee his safety. She will say directly that if he goes to war and something happens to him, then what will happen to her? Then, in the end, she will be left alone in managing the barony, and they say that the life of a baron is not worth even 1 million silver coins, although this is only enough for a month's maintenance of the estate. The guy understands that she wants to say that he should raise the price if he is going to leave and fall into eternal sleep somewhere. Kasia apologized if she'd offended him, and though her words sounded a little harsh, she thought he wouldn't understand even if she had to repeat them 100 times. Of course, she'd prefer he returned safe and sound, but who could guarantee his safety on the battlefield? People are not destined to know what will happen in the future, and she says this not for herself, but rather for his sake. He is no longer a commoner, but now a nobleman in charge of his lands. Viscount Vichy is no longer his master, so let him not think of him in that way. He asked them for help, and the guy can either accept or decline his request. If he doesn't change his mind, even after all her explanations, then nothing can be done. But let him remember that the attitude of the other nobles towards him will also extend to her. And if he makes wrong decisions, she will be extremely disappointed in him. The girl claims that she is the wife of Baron Grizz, and not the wife of a soldier who is ready to risk his life for some trifle. The guy replies that it's okay, and he understands, and the girl asks if this means that she can accept Viscount Vichy's invitation. Her interlocutor replies that she can do whatever she wants, but he warns that it could be dangerous. The main character replies that yes, after which they are silent for a while. The girl understands that she should not have gotten up, but rather tried to understand her husband, and it seems that she still cannot simply enjoy life. The Baron asks if she doesn't like what he does, what he wants, but the lady replies that it's not so. She simply says that he shouldn't be afraid of being a nobleman. Now he is one of the nation, and it doesn't matter what happened in the past. Unlike those who inherited the title from their ancestors, whose achievements were recognized and celebrated, he is much more respected. At least that's what she thinks. So let the guy be more confident. But when she looks at her husband's face, she realizes that he is very touched by her words. After which, the girl notices a box on the table and asks what it is. The young man recalls the butler's words about Lady Florent, bringing a gift to help the Baron get closer to his wife. It seems this chocolate is quite expensive, and he's sure the lady will like it. She also conveyed that it should be paired with wine. After which, the man tells the lady to open this box, because it is his gift. When the girl opens the box, she thanks him, and after trying one of the candies, claims that this is the first time she has tried such delicious chocolate. She also hands a piece to her husband and asks if it is not delicious, to which he agrees, but realizes that he has no idea what it tastes like. At that moment, the protagonist wonders what this feeling is, since this wasn't part of her 10-year plan. Cassia says she's tired and will go to bed, and her companion says he will too. But when the girl lies down, she thinks about what's going on and what's wrong with her. Her husband also gets up, and the main character asks if he is feeling unwell. But at that very moment, the lady wonders what happened to her voice. When the guy asks what happened, the girl replies that everything is fine, but she thinks she needs to go out and run some errands. The Baron shouts at her to wait, and the lady asks what is wrong, to which he replies that it seems he should go first. The lady insists that she really needs it too, but he says it's more urgent for him. But when he rises, the main character asks what it is, and when the Baron asks what she is talking about, the lady points her finger. The guy, noticing this, immediately becomes embarrassed and cries out that he doesn't know. Cassia wonders why they suddenly became like this, and when she looks at the box of chocolates, she asks the Baron where he got them and whether he really bought them when he went out. The guy asks what she's talking about and, looking at the lady, thinks why she's so dazzling today. If only he could touch her for just a moment. But at that very moment, the Baron wonders if he has gone crazy and where he was even going to touch her. The guy clenches his fist and then hits himself in the face, and the main character, in shock, asks what's wrong with him. But he just pushes the lady away and tells her to leave there, because right now he feels strange. And the girl claims that she doesn't feel any strength at all, and she also feels strange, after which she screams, asking where he got those candies. Zester realizes it's all about the chocolate and remembers the butler's words. The main character says the Baron is aroused, but the man insists the lady is exhausted, so he'll take her to her room. Kasia wonders if he'll carry her, and what a relief it is that the guy didn't push her onto the bed. The man immediately apologizes and claims that he committed an unforgivable sin worthy of death, after which he thinks what an idiot he is, because all he can do is make excuses, and the lady is driving him crazy. Zester claims that the truth is that when Miss Rosaline came, she actually brought it as a gift for them, after which the Baron asks what they should do, and the main character thinks how much she wants to hit him. But at that very moment, the lady falls, and her interlocutor, in shock, asks what they should do. The main character screams, "Is he really asking about such a thing?" After which she realizes that the guy is an ideal man, in whom there is nothing good. The lady also claims that she is glad that they are married, because what would he do if he shared that chocolate with a stranger? But this could have become a huge problem. Her interlocutor exclaims that there wouldn't have been any problems if he had found himself in a similar situation with another woman, because then he would simply cut off his dignity, and the main character, in shock, asks what he's talking about, after which her interlocutor thinks that since they are a couple, he asks if he can kiss her on the lips. The main character understands that they have done such things before, so she is interested in what it will be like, after which the lady approaches him and kisses him passionately. When the guy pulls away, he turns to Cassia and asks if he can. The main character immediately replies that everything is fine, and she told me that they don't ask about such things. Then Zester kisses her again. With each kiss, he moves lower, touching sensitive areas. The main character is a little surprised and claims that she didn't know it would be so nice. Her interlocutor asks what she is talking about, and the girl repeats once again that it is so good, and she is very pleased. The Baron tenderly kisses her hand, after which they continue their merry night. In the morning, the Baron wakes up first and remembers the lady's words about how pleasant it was for her. He immediately hits himself in the face and wonders if he dreamed it all. The guy immediately wraps the lady in a blanket and recalls her words about being glad they're married. Zester understands what they see in marriage and then tells her how much he loves her. When the main character wakes up, she realizes that she can't breathe and still thinks about why she made love to him. Something tells me it wasn't just the chocolate. When the lady turns to her husband, she asks if he's awake yet. Kaja tells the Baron it's time to get up, as they must meet with the Viscount to discuss business. When she addresses him again, the young man tells her to call him dear. He also claims that the lady called him that yesterday, and the main character sheepishly asks what the big deal is. Zester asks if she can call him that more often, and the girl wonders what is wrong with him, because could it be that someone possessed him right after she returned to the past? She also tells the guy to raise his hand first, after which the girl grabs her clothes and realizes she needs to hurry. When the main character looks at the chocolate and then turns her gaze to the Baron, the guy cries out, asking if it bothers her. He also shouts that this can't be called a gift, but the main character only smiles and claims that they were useful last night, to which he replies that he could have handled it himself. Kasha claims that they need to see the Viscount off, so they will see each other when they get ready. When the lady leaves, she still calls him darling, which makes the guy drop the candy from his hands. A little while later, the Viscount stands near the carriage and thinks that there is some strange atmosphere there, because they look like a couple who have just started dating. The guy claims that thanks to them, his stay there was very comfortable. The Baron apologizes for not treating him properly and asks for more consideration next time. The protagonist wishes her friend a safe journey and says he should check everything and contact her. Dryan replies that of course. The Baron asks what it is about, to which the guy replies that it is personal. Kasia asks him not to misunderstand, because this is related to the study of magical stones. The Viscount thinks the man looks like a submissive puppy, and therefore there is no need to worry about Kasia. But this guy had better protect her, since he has snagged such a beauty for himself. The Viscount extends his hand to his friend, and then prepares to kiss her. But at the same moment, the Baron snatches his wife's hand and wishes the Viscount a good journey, and also states that he has heard that the matter is urgent, so he should hurry. The guy then smiles and replies that yes, it's time to go, after which he tells Cassia to take care of herself. As he leaves, the two awkwardly hold hands. A short time later, they arrive at Viscount Vicious, with whom the deal is to be concluded. The Viscount understands that it is important to take the initiative during a deal, and when the Baron leaves, he tells his interlocutor that they have not seen each other for a long time, and the latter asks how they have been. When the Viscount looks at the young man, he realizes he hasn't changed a bit, and is this really how an aristocrat should look? He also wonders if the young man is without his wife today, which is a shame, since he was so looking forward to meeting her. But at that very moment, the main character gets out of the carriage and says that she is pleased to meet Viscount Vish. The man is shocked by this and realizes the lady is simply beautiful. When the Baron approaches him, he claims he'd heard rumors of the Baroness's beauty, and now he's had the chance to see her in person. The Baron just looks at him coldly, and Vish thinks that he has trained this bastard well, after which he claims that they have come such a long way, so he has prepared a festive table, but they can pass faster. At this time, the man is thinking about what kind of disgusting feeling he has. The main character asks what's going on and invites him to come along. He puts his hand on her shoulder, and the girl asks what happened and addresses him as Baron. But the guy corrects her again and claims that she should call him darling, to which she agrees. A short time later, they are already sitting at the table, and the Viscount claims that he only took into account his own preferences, so he is not sure whether everything will be to their taste. Zester tells the Viscount that this is more than enough, and the main character wonders what he is saying. The girl also claims that she heard that they have been working together for a long time, and then why does she have the feeling that for the sake of something dear, she is on the wings of her feet for the first time, to which the guy replies that he has never eaten with the Viscount. Visha claims that this is true, and their schedules never quite matched up, so he is glad that the stars aligned this time. The Baron claims that it is a great honor for him to be there, and the main character thinks that he will need to be properly taught some sense, since he doesn't even understand what his current position in society is. The Viscount says that the Baroness personally sent a letter inquiring about the reward, and if his answer somehow embarrassed her, then he apologizes, because he should have thought about everything before saying such a thing. The girl replies that he's right, and she hopes it won't happen again. She also asks if he understands that he's violated etiquette by treating someone who has served him so faithfully all these years this way. The man replies that it seems the Baron has accumulated quite a few complaints over the course of their collaboration. The young man was saying something about it, but then he noticed his wife's gaze. The main character insists that the Baron never expressed dissatisfaction with the Viscount, and she thinks that instead of further escalating the conflict, he should apologize for his inappropriate behavior and offer decent compensation, since they're all business people. Or maybe their visions differ, and she thought he didn't need to be told the basics of deal-making. The man then claims that there seems to have been a misunderstanding, and the girl replies that she does not recall having any ulterior or nefarious motives, which cannot be said about him. The Viscount then tells the Baroness to listen, and the girl replies that she's already listening and asks him to speak and not stutter. The man doesn't even know what to say, but the girl continues, insisting that, as a fool of noble birth, he should know that payment should be equal to the work performed. Or maybe someone who's been in this field for a long time still doesn't know the market price for this kind of help. The lady also suggests he not say he didn't know her husband was putting his life on the line, and he doesn't wish such a fate on him, so it goes without saying that he can't guarantee his safety. The man replies that he admits he overlooked some details, after which he suggests that they review the price of the reward together, after which he asks what the Baron thinks about this, since he's making a deal with him. At this time, the guy remembers how in the carriage, the main character told him that when the time comes, he should not think about anything and ask how much he himself is ready to offer, and then they will decide everything on the spot. The Baron says he doesn't mean to be rude, but he'd like to know how much his interlocutor is willing to offer. Vish realizes the girl has prepared him well, and then claims he'll add another 1,000,000 silver coins. The guy immediately asks, surprised, what he's talking about, and he asks what he's going to say, but the main character slaps her husband on the leg, and the guy, confused, wonders why this happened so suddenly, and, looking at her face, wonders what kind of smile that is. But at that very moment, the main character pinches his leg and insists she doesn't think the Baron is happy with the price. 50,000 gold bars up front and another 50,000 for success. She thinks it's fair to settle on 10 bars. Her interlocutor claims that the Baroness is still young and inexperienced, and therefore not well informed, but the girl replies that this is unlikely. Before the boy's birth in the Ruberno household, she was trained as a future heir. Her father taught her not to undervalue her own work and to pay someone else's work fairly, and that's what worthy people do. The girl understands that the goal of the expedition is to destroy monsters, which means the contractor can set their own price for each individual case. The lady also claims that she will be honest, and no one will take on the case with the amount offered to them, so she asks to take this into account and think again. If they fail to reach an agreement, they will simply refuse his offer and will only be grateful for the fact that he generously allowed them to stay in such a beautiful mansion. A little while later, they are already sitting in the living room, and the girl asks if something is wrong. Her husband replies that everything is fine, but the girl claims that he is lying because it is written all over his face. The guy then asks what if the Vec refuses to cooperate, and they can't return empty-handed. He's already hired people, and the people there are suffering greatly. Therefore, he asks her to think again, because the guy is sure that she is not so frivolous as to refuse his offer. Zester wonders why money is so important to her, because it helps people. But the girl replies that she is not greedy, and that he is simply stupid, because it is very stupid to go to war for such a small fee. The guy once again claims that it is not that small, but his interlocutor says that it is very small, and it is sad that they have different ideas about money. He should be grateful that Paul is nearby, because if the Baron controlled Grizz, if it were done alone, it would have fallen apart within a year. The guy understands these rights, and it's the first time he's been in such a situation, so he's wondering what to do. But the main character suggests that he not lose heart and listen carefully. This time, he must receive 10 ingots from the Viscount and use the money to hire soldiers. It's better to go to war with trained warriors than with people ignorant of discipline, order, and military affairs. Of course, He won't be able to hire many people for that price, so he can start with a few people he trusts. The Baron claims he doesn't want to interrupt, but asks to be allowed to ask a question. On the very first day, the lady declared she had neither the talent nor the desire to manage the household, and said Grizz would collapse if she took a hand in management. The main character realizes that she is remembering and only smiles awkwardly, while her interlocutor claims that he thought this kind of work irritated her, but now it seems to him that this was not the case. Moreover, he would not say that the lady has neither the talent nor the desire to work in the state. He understands that he is right, because she only wanted to enjoy the remaining 10 years of her life and make her stay there as easy as possible. But plans changed, and all because of that idiot Zester. The girl wonders if it's worth mentioning that after she enters eternal sleep, everything will go to hell, after which the girl claims that she cannot turn a blind eye to how her husband is being mercilessly used, and that if he were more cunning and insightful, he would understand everything. At that moment, the Baron starts laughing, and the girl wonders if she said something funny. Her interlocutor replies that there are none. He is simply glad to be her good-for-nothing man, so he asks to make him more cunning. If he were different, he would receive less of her attention. The guy claims she would be more distant and wouldn't be as close to him, helping or caring. Kasia wonders if Zester was like this in a past life, and she seems to be beginning to understand. Excessive respect for aristocrats and low self-esteem. Pretending to be cold and indifferent, he hid these weaknesses deep within himself, and that was the whole problem. He got used to constant humiliation and began to devalue himself because everyone considered him a fool and only gave him orders. The guy looks at his wife, wondering if his words hurt her. About 9 years later, he turns to his beloved, and like a little dog, he replies, "Yes." The main character smiles and realizes that the more she looks at him, the more he resembles Rael. But the guy hasn't changed, and she was only able to see him now. Pinched him painfully, and the guy asks if she is talking about the incident with the table. The girl apologizes for scaring him, and he just started nodding almost immediately. Zester. He claims it was painful, even though he really didn't think her delicate hands were capable of such a thing. The main character asks if it's true, and claims she's sorry. But the guy asks if she thinks an apology will be enough. He takes the lady's hand and places it on his knee and asks if she shouldn't stroke it so that it doesn't hurt anymore. The girl is shocked, embarrassed, and asks him what he's talking about, to which the guy just laughs. The Viscount, meanwhile, scatters the dishes and asks if they really offered the job for 10 gold bars. The servant insists he doesn't think anyone would agree to less. Well, his interlocutor shouts at him to shut up, because he already knows. The butler insists that he should accept the offer, but his master asks what next. And does he really think the Baron will ask for less later, and that this is all the work of that girl? The servant believes that next time he should offer a decent fee right away. The Baron just kicks and screams what a fool the guy is, but he is so angry. How dare this girl steal someone else's idiot? Zester is his slave and no one else's. But at that very moment, someone bursts into the master's room and screams that they have problems again. A message has been received that the Rockin clan is heading towards the castle. The Viscount asks what he said, while Zester is already getting ready. The protagonist claims that the Viscount hasn't yet agreed to their price, but the Baron turns to his wife and declares that he swears on his life that he will not allow them to set foot in that castle while she is there. If he'd known this would happen, he never would have brought her there. At that very moment, the Viscount runs up to the defense and shouts for him to hurry up, to which he replies, "Yes!" and he's already on his way. Kasia apologizes to the Viscount and asks if they could discuss the compensation issue right now. The man replies that he would like them to give him more time because things are not going so well. Zester turns to his wife and states that they can talk about it after the battle, and he asks her to wait a little. The main character thinks how disgusting this old man is, because he is always trying to extract his own benefit. At this time, the Baron asks the Viscount to take care of his wife, because he did not want them to go to the castle together, because she felt that there would be problems. The man tells him not to worry, because his soldiers are seeing her off, and shaking Harrow's hand, tells him to put those scumbags to eternal sleep. When the Baron agrees, his interlocutor claims that he is very grateful. Kasia understands that Viscount Vish decided to pay with a handshake. A little while later, one of the opponents on the battlefield thinks that no matter how much he contacted him, he did not respond, And could it be that this guy decided to betray him? At this time, the Baron is cutting down monsters. The enemies are wondering if he is even human, and maybe he is the god of war. The Raken clan, named Gred, tells the other leader to get his act together, because if this continues, they will be destroyed. His interlocutor asks what he thinks he should do, and he replies that they will take this guy on themselves, and he should go to the Viscount's mansion. The guy asks if he really wants him to go to Vish, to which Gred he replies that yes, these are the Viscount's people. We need to capture him, and then he'll stop his guard dogs himself. Apparently, they'll chase them all the way to Bask, so let the guy pretend to retreat, and then go after Vichy, capture him, and bring him back to them. The Rakan are a tribe from the Bask mountain range, and they are planning to seize the lands of Vish. There were many rumors about this tribe, and although there was one truth to them, the Rakan had settled in the Vish Viscounty. It was well known that no one had ever stolen or killed in the north, and they only wanted to live peacefully in those lands. So they sent a polite appeal, asking the Kanto to accept them. But Vichy threw away all the letters and told the butler to be careful with them, and threw away all the letters and also spread gossip about the tribe. There was no need to send reinforcements, but they were very lucky that they were able to use Zester again, and therefore will punishment overtake them. A short time later, the Viscount is already sitting on the ground, shaking, and offers to talk. One of the tribesmen claims they were only asking for a favor, but the guy tried to put them into eternal sleep, and he will never forgive him for that. The Viscount claims he had a reason for this, after which the guy suggests that he shut up and order his subordinates to immediately stop the massacre. Vichy asks what they want from him, and the guy screams at him to go there right now, and also orders them to bring the commander's head. Vichy, in shock, asks what they said, and understands that no matter how stupid Zester is, he will never plunge into eternal sleep for his sake. Jerome says that if you think about it, the Viscount hired him, but he would have fallen into eternal sleep if he had dragged the century he did to him. At the same moment, the man claims that there is another way to save their clan and behead the commander. Jerome tells him not to even try to joke with him, but the man replies that he wouldn't. The Viscount understands that everything is working and claims that the commander's wife is still there and would be a better hostage than him. A short time later, the main character sees a monster in front of her and wonders how the Raken found her. Jerome wonders if she's the mercenary commander's wife. The girl thinks what a jerk the Viscount is, and all this time he knew how valuable her life was, and convinced them to take her prisoner instead. The clan's vegetable claims they're taking her with them, and the main character realizes she doesn't know what will happen if she decides to resist, and whether her second life will be in vain. She must hold out until they bring her to Zester. At this time, the guy grabs the main character and tells her not to move and to close her mouth, because if she makes noise, he will put her into eternal sleep. The lady asks if they really want to put her in a bag, and the guy replies that yes, and if not, they can always saddle the Rakens and do whatever she wants. The girl looks at these monsters and realizes that she is scared, after which she tells them to just put her in a bag, after which the leader orders her to be tied up. Meanwhile, he runs and hides under the table, then hears the monsters leave. But at that very moment, he hears someone else and cries out, "Who's there?" It turns out to be the butler, Visha, confirms that they need to get moving, and the servant asks if he is planning an escape, after which he asserts that he will prepare. But first, the butler asks who he should ask for help. Vish, ask where he's planning to flee from, and let the man go seek help from here, since he promised them wealth and everything they wanted. Of money, of course, but there's nothing to be done. The butler turns to the gentleman and claims it will be a disaster if news of the unrest reaches the other gentleman, and that he did, after all, hand the Baroness over to him for captivity. His master says what an idiot this guy is. Does he really think that the girl can survive alone? And didn't he hear that they want to behead the Baron? And it will be difficult for a mercenary to deal with the monsters if the Baron falls into eternal sleep. Vichy cries out that no matter what happens, she will definitely fall into eternal sleep with dignity. So let the servant get moving, along with all the young men, and let them appear as soon as possible. He agrees and runs to carry out the order. The Viscount understands that he will never give them 10 gold bars. Meanwhile, someone on the battlefield shouts for them to stay put. Zester understands that the battle is dragging on, and given the endurance of these monsters, if this continues, they will be at a disadvantage. So he needs to return to the castle immediately, because he has a bad feeling about this. Zester thinks about his wife and realizes he shouldn't have brought her there. Just then, one of the monsters attacks the Baron. The guy immediately reflects the attack. Well, when he wants to hit the monster, he sees that it dodged, and apparently this monster is trained. The clan leader asks if the guy is sure he will survive, since it looks like he has time to be distracted. The Baron at this time looks menacingly at his opponent, and he understands that it feels as if he has lost his mind over the past 100 days. The man replies that there are such, after which they apologize for letting him lose himself in thought on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the main character heads to the sack and realizes she's nauseous. The clan leader turns to Tan and orders him to tell Gred that they've captured the commander's wife. Meanwhile, the main character unravels from the sack and asks where she is now. The leader replies that these are the Basque Mountains. Now they are waiting for the leader, and then they will go to the commander of the mercenaries. After which, the guy lights a fire and wraps the lady in a blanket. The main character realizes she imagined it back in the castle, but these guys are genuinely caring, so why did they attack the Viscount? At this time, someone else approaches the main character, and when the girl asks what this guy is doing, then he just wonders if all noble ladies smell like that, and the girl asks him to move away. The leader immediately turns to Kuno and tells him not to bother this woman and not to touch her. When the boy disobeys and is about to touch the main character, the leader points a gun at him and claims that they do not harm the clan fathers. But there are exceptions. The young man immediately claims that he has listened to orders and tells his brother that he was mistaken, but he is already releasing the arrow, after which he only hits the rabbit, but grazes his clansman's cheek. The guy tells him to go hunting, because the Rakens must be hungry. A little while later, he is already frying rabbit meat and tells the lady that there are still people who behave the same way, which is why he teaches them as best he can. The girl replies that everything is fine and thanks him, after which she claims that they don't seem like they say they are. Jerome replies that his and Gred's mother was from the Empire's high society. Their father captured her, and she gave birth. When they were younger, they didn't know that this was not allowed, but for their mother, it was humiliating. And since she left, they all think about it, because they were not animals, but people. He didn't want to treat the lady so casually, so he hoped she would understand. Cassia. He claims that if she gets hurt, they will lose their only trump card, so doesn't she at least need a weapon for her own protection? The girl also tells them not to worry, because she is not going to harm herself or anything like that. And the young man replies that the truth is that they went to the castle without even thinking about starting a war and asked the Viscount for help because they wanted to settle there and just live. The girl asks if they are talking about the Viscount, and then why did they harm innocent people? The guy wonders what she's saying, because even though they settled down, they haven't attacked anyone. The Rakano were trained not to harm anyone, and they always hunt for themselves, so there hasn't been a single invasion of any village, and he swears that. The main character wonders why the villagers are asking other lands for help, and rumors are spreading that the Rakens are attacking them. The girl realizes that the more she learns about Viscount Vish, the more terrifying he becomes. Meanwhile, the boy claims that as soon as they behead the mercenary commander, he swears on his name that he will restore her safety, so the lady shouldn't worry. The main character, in shock, asks what he is talking about and wonders who they are going to behead. The guy apologizes, but insists that this is their goal, as they've lost too many people, and Gred is upset. The main character says it's so disappointing that they don't know the whole story, and that they won't be able to survive if her husband is beheaded. The guy asks what this means, and the lady claims that they should have captured the Viscount and not her, because he is simply waiting for their return to the castle. Perhaps he's already called for reinforcements and other troops to drive them out. The boy immediately screams and curses at the Viscount, but the girl insists it's too late now, and the boy wonders what they should do. Cassia, she claims that she sympathizes with the fact that their people have fallen into eternal sleep due to misunderstanding. But how about ending it all without regrets? Meanwhile, on the battlefield, one of the servants approaches the chieftain and reports the situation. Gred exclaims, "What an idiot he is!" And the boy asks if they're not following the Viscount's instructions. And doesn't the Viscount sacrifice his commander to save his own life? Gred says the guy is such a fool, and he should have grabbed the Viscount and brought him there. But what a fool he was to believe in that idiot Jerome. The guy turns sadly to his brother and generally screams for him to hide, because there is no point in being held captive. But first, he needs to sort out the negotiations. He then turns to the Baron and offers to talk. The Baron immediately counters one of his attacks and suggests they stop beating around the bush. The leader claims that they brought the woman to such a dangerous place, and when he observes the Baron's reaction, he understands that everything is turning out much better than he thought. The man asks what he said, after which Gred orders everyone to stop. One of the mercenaries turns to the defense and asks what's going on, and the guy replies that he should order everyone to stop, after which the mercenary does so. The Baron, meanwhile, points his gun at his opponent and asks where his wife is. Gred insists that negotiations should begin only after he rescues the hostage, and if the guy wants to see his wife, then let him go with them. Zester understands that the Basque Mountains are extremely harsh, so it turns out that they got there from the estate in such a short time. The man looks at the monster and realizes that it's probably just a playground for them, but he so desperately wanted to save his wife. But the guy wonders where he went wrong and realizes he still longs to hear her voice. He shouldn't have married her while pretending to know nothing, after which the man dismounts and declares that he's walking, so let him lead the way. At this point, Jaren asks if they want to say they're going to a shelter in their lands, to which the main character replies that they are. The young man claims that he doesn't understand anything, because they were at odds with each other and were wondering if it makes sense to start talking. Cassia wonders if this is the best option for resolving what is happening to the witches. Grizz, they will have a strong army of Raycon. The main character claims they'll treat them equally and that there are a lot of mountains there, but since it reminds them of home, everything will be fine. The guy asks why the lady goes to such lengths for them. They are her husband's enemies after all, and how can she trust him? The girl replies that they shouldn't have become enemies and that it seems there was a misunderstanding, so it needs to be resolved properly. Moreover, she said that if they were to put her and her husband into eternal sleep now, they would be persecuted. The lady also wonders what they will do then. The girl also asks whether they should all fall into eternal sleep or live. To answer something, but at that very moment someone turns to Jerome. When the main character turns around, she sees her husband, and when he leads the girl, he immediately screams out to her. Jerome grabs the lady, and the Baron screams for him to stop. One of the mercenaries turns to the commander and claims he's there to negotiate, so he should calm down. But the Baron, with tears in his eyes, tells the boy to tell him what he wants. The mercenaries and tribesmen stare at the Baron in shock. Even the main character is confused. The lady turns to her beloved, and he turns to her with tears in his eyes. Gred, he wonders what's going on there, and the main character tries to calm her husband down, and also wonders why he's crying, since she's completely fine. The Baron then turns to Gred and invites him to say what he wants and what he must do. The leader claims that many of their people died because of them, so what he wants is his head. The mercenaries scream, "Has he really gone completely crazy?" and thinks that they are such fools that they calmly followed them. But at that very moment, the Baron shouts for them to be quiet and looks at his wife with tears in his eyes. The protagonist immediately turns to Jerome and insists that he needs to think of something quick. The Baron immediately throws away his sword and asks for his wife to come forward. The protagonist, shocked, turns to her beloved and realizes she thought he was coming to rescue her. So how can a person not think for at least a minute about when they decided to give up and plunge into eternal sleep? The lady screams at him to stop being a fool and to ask him what he's doing, but the guy insists that Kasia can't live on this earth. The protagonist realizes his face now resembles Rael's when he wants her to caress him. And yet, in this very situation, she sees his tears. The guy tells the lady to return to Ruberno because that's what she wanted so much. And the main character, from the USA, screams that she told him to stop crying, and the guy insists it's all his fault and he should have listened to her. But the lady tells him not to worry, because he won't fall into eternal sleep. One of the mercenaries understands that he is about to plunge into an eternal sleep in this situation. The clan leader screams that they will cut off their heads, no matter how sad it sounds, but they have no choice. Jerome immediately tells his brother not to kill the guy, but just come to an agreement. Gred furiously asks what he's talking about, and the guy replies that there is a better way, because their enemy is not the mercenary commander, but the one who set them up and ignored them. That is, the Viscount. The guy asks what he's talking about. At that very moment, the main character claims she heard they invaded the Viscount's lands and threatened him. The peace of their people is important to them, so as nobles, they decided to help. If they knew that they just wanted to live like people, they wouldn't even think about going against them. The clan leader, shocked, asks if they really threatened the Viscount. The lady replies that they did, and if the Viscount doesn't accept them, they can move to other lands. All the people here consider them savages who need to be tamed, so the lady asks if they could move in. Even though they didn't know, she can't deny that they plunged their loved ones into eternal sleep, so the ladies offer them their sincere apologies. Jerome says they also caused damage to the mercenaries, so they should apologize. So his brother asks what the guy is talking about now. One of the mercenaries picks up the commander's weapon and addresses him. The girl says there's no guarantee they'll survive even if they put her husband into eternal sleep, and perhaps even now, as they speak, the Viscount's reinforcements are already on the way. Unfortunately, all that awaits them is eternal sleep. Meanwhile, the tribe's leader ponders whether there's a place where they can live peacefully. Kasha claims that they will help them and provide them with land where they can live together as people, after which she extends her hand to Gred and offers to take it. The guy is touched by this and does so, after which they conduct peace negotiations. A short time later, the girl is already riding a horse, but when she looks at her husband, she realizes he's almost crying again. He says it's dangerous to ride like that and asks her to hold on tightly to the reins. Cassia. She replies that of course it does, and asks why he is constantly frowning, because this is not appropriate for a grown man. Zester. He said it was all his fault, and the girl asked if he was crying again. She also insisted that everything ended well, so he should stop crying. The guy realizes that's how it is. He came to save his wife, but instead he should thank her for her efforts. But he really doesn't deserve her, and yet he doesn't want to let her go. The guy turns to his wife and claims he was wrong, and admits he acted like an idiot. From now on, he will listen to her and do everything right, so he asks her not to leave him. Cassia wonders what he's suddenly saying, and then he claims he knows he's a fool and asks her not to disappear without telling him. Cassia claims that there is only the brand there, but the guy asks her again to promise it right now. The lady insists that of course, and it's not at all difficult. Cassia understands that this means that she should simply warn before going somewhere. A little while later, someone else comes out onto the mountain, and the man asks what it is. It turns out to be Count Berthel Axios, Viscount Barnan. He claims that Baron Zester was indeed defeated, and he believes that he is not capable of defeating those settlers. The Viscount tells the Count that they simply have to stop them, after which he suggests they go. But at that same moment, the man tells them to wait, and when Bacon looks down, he asks if Baron Grizz is there by any chance. His interlocutor replies that this is true and it is the Baron, but then the guy asks if there is a woman with him. At this time, Zeester approaches them, and the man turns to the Baron and also asks what happened, because they heard from the Viscount that the mercenary detachment was defeated. The Count is looking at them at this time, and the Vian asks what is going on there and where the woman came from. The Baron claims that this is his wife, and the Viscount says that if this is the Baron's wife, then she is the daughter of Count Roberno. The main character claims that she is glad to meet Viscount Barnan and Count Axios. At this time, the man wonders why the Baron and his wife are there. Cassia. She realizes that Count Axios is the king of the north, which is unexpected. Luckily, he reacts just as she expected. The lady claims that the current situation is a long story. They went into battle as soon as Viscount Vish told them his lands had been seized by the Raikans. Imagine her surprise when it turned out otherwise. They didn't want to harm the empire, and from what she heard, they were having a hard time because they couldn't find a place for themselves. Now the lady is trying to gather the remaining people and return together to the barony of Grizz. The Viscount, shocked, asks what she's saying and whether she's really leading them to Grizz. Cassia insists they didn't harm her people and only asked Viscount Vish, a place where they could stay, realizes at this point that Viscount Vish has indeed used his head. The girl claims there are rumors that the northern lords are cold and narcissistic. She knew some of the gossip, but she didn't particularly believe it. If the current power is causing problems, she's sure it's not just about the lands. The girl understands that the northern lords have truly ridiculous demands. She felt uncomfortable, so she ignored Viscount Viche. Initially surrounded by borders, the northern part of the empire was subject to invasion from the outside world. This led to the emergence of unspoken rules, including assistance to neighboring lands. The Viscount, meanwhile, tells the Baroness to forgive, of course, but Viscount Vish asks for support. The girl replies that he's right, and their Baron wasn't sure of the fairness of the Viscount's request. They assumed his activities were connected to the northern lands, and certainly didn't act rashly. Therefore, she hopes the northern nobles will consider this. The Count claims that the lady is right, and is so ashamed that he was criticized by such a young Baroness that he will take her advice into account. Kaja apologizes and claims they've gotten off topic, to which he replies that nothing has happened and asks if the Baron left the squad for his wife. The guy immediately replies that it's not like that. But at that very moment, the main character begins to cry and claims it's all due to poor communication. Although the Rakan clan came to the castle to negotiate with the figure there, he made a hasty decision by leaving her in the castle, so naturally, they took her hostage to negotiate. The Count and Viscount are shocked to think that the life of Viscount Vish is really so valuable that he gave the Baron's wife into captivity. The Viscount, shocked, cries out, "What kind of nonsense is this?" And the clan leader asks why they're still defending against the Q. Everything they said is true. The guy claims their clan made a mistake and shouldn't be covered for. They wanted to take the icon hostage to find a way to survive, but this idiot borrowed it from the commander instead. Cassia tells the guy to be quieter, but in his mind, he thinks what a great guy he is and let him continue. At this point, the young man cries out how stupid they are and wonders if all nobles are like that. The girl understands that the nobles will not be able to accept the fact that their dignity is being questioned. The shame she is experiencing now will turn into condemnation directed at Viscount Visha. The Baron claims the original plan was to head to the Viscount's estate and report on the situation, but now he wants to return. The young man also wonders if the Count could say a few words on their behalf, to which the man replies that they have worked hard, so they should not worry and return home safely, because they will not allow the Viscount's cruelty to be unleashed. Zester. He says he's very grateful. Berthal looks at the main character and realizes he'd definitely like to marry a girl as beautiful and unscarred as she is. The rumors are true, because she's more than just a pretty face. Zester turns to his lady at this point, and when she asks what's going on, he just looks at her with a smile. Cassia. He says that if he has nothing to say, then why does he continue? Well, the guy tells her to wait, because he has something to say. The young man also asks how she recognized Count Axios and Viscount Barnon, since they were meeting for the first time. The protagonist claims she was simply being cautious. Lady also understands that if this had happened in a past life, she wouldn't have known him yet, but now he's impossible not to recognize. Because of him, her life had become unbearable. A while ago, the guy insisted he wouldn't force her and asked what the lady thought. Maybe they could become friends and have their cherished wishes come true. A short time later, Viscount Barnan turns to Viscount Veach and cries out, if he knows what he's done. The man asks what they're talking about. Well, then he sees the head of Axios and a representative from the north enter the room. If something is wrong, then the one he should have been afraid of right there. After which, the man asks him to sit down and talk calmly. At that very moment, Barnon screams that he's had enough. He also asks if it's true that migrants have invaded private homes and seized local residences. If there are any injured residents, he should bring them there so they can see. The Viscount then asks what they're talking about. The Count replies that the tribe seems quite peaceful, and he's heard they're looking for a place to settle. The Viscount asks what he means by that, and Agraf replies that he's not in the mood. He even paid Baron Grizz that price, and as if that wasn't enough, he decided to hand over his wife as a prisoner, after which he turns coldly to Viscount Vish. Barnan speaks that, given what the silver-haired Baroness thinks, it's all true. The Count wonders if Viscount Vish knows about the virtues of the lords of their empire. The most powerful imperial family demanded generosity from its vassals. As long as they remained unresponsive and not hostile to the empire, the emperor did not expel those who had nowhere else to go. Therefore, the lords were forced to be generous to outsiders. The man claims that the Grizz barony accepted them, and the barony said that she was ashamed. While the Count watches all this, Viscount Barnan continues and cries out that a person is given a brain to think, and it doesn't matter how much his life costs. But how could he think like that? Vici insists everything is wrong, but his interlocutor asks what wrong means and what he'll do about it. He was so far from falling into eternal sleep because of his own gloominess and returned home collecting monsters. Now they'll tell Count Rubern everything. Northern men are mad, and he's talking about barbarians now. Vichy asks the Viscount to calm down, but he only shouts at him to be quiet. As he leaves, Barnan shouts that he will no longer cooperate with Vichy, so he should keep that in mind. The Count at this time talks about Baroness Grizz and claims that it seems she turned 17 this year. The Viscount replies that yes, and his interlocutor says that the fact that she was taken prisoner and she survived and tried to talk to them is amazing. This isn't the kind of situation where the young lady would behave calmly, and if the Baroness weren't there, who would have resolved the situation? Baron Grizz doesn't communicate well with his mercenaries. That's probably why the Viscount wanted the Baron to go. The Count claims he wouldn't listen to either side and would simply wipe them all out and return. The girl was in a situation where her life was at risk, but she lied to the army and returned home unharmed. So isn't that surprising? From what he heard, she was just a pretty lady from the south, but she believed that Baron Grizz's reward was quite generous, and the Viscount asked if it was true. The Count is thinking that if he hadn't fallen then, she would have been his. But at that very moment, the Viscount grabs the Count by the cloak and says he was too hasty this time. Even if he's angry, Vichy asks him to be merciful. The man simply glares menacingly at the Viscount, after which he leaves. A short while later, the main character sits in her room, thinking that it was awkward to interfere in Viscount Vichy's affairs. But everything ended well. She invited James to the castle, so it's time to get the wig business off the ground, as they're broke. Although she never thought about sending her father a letter, things are different now. The lady writes that she should have written to her father earlier, and apologizes for writing so late. She also asks for his understanding, as she's been busy adjusting to many things, and then she asks if everything is okay with him. But at that very moment, someone else enters the room, and the lady tells this man to come in. It turns out it's her husband or boyfriend, who says she must be tired, and then asks why Letty isn't sleeping. Kazuya argues that if he thought she was asleep, then why did he come into her room? Zester looks at the pillow in his hands, and understands that, as expected, the pillow betrayed him. Kazuya asks if he is going to sleep, after which she suggests that he do so. Meanwhile, the guy looks at the letters on the table. The girl has written a request to borrow some money, as there are more and more people to care for, and things aren't going well. The main character immediately turns to her beloved, and tells him not to look. And in the end, the lady writes that her father should take care of his health, and she also misses him. The guy looks at his wife again with tears in his eyes, and she realizes he's like a puppy in the rain. She had to marry with such a meager inheritance, so is he going to say he's poor, and that's why they have to deal with his father? The Baron apologizes for the fact that she had to marry such a poor man, and he even forced her to write such a letter to the Count. All because he is poor. Kazuya. He claims that he didn't ask for money, so why is he apologizing? But he replies that he doesn't think it's right, so he'll go tomorrow. A request for reinforcements has been received from the northern coastal lands. The round trip will cost a considerable amount of money, but just one trip should last them a month. The main character wonders if he really wants to move tomorrow, and that he will focus on gathering his army for now, because his father will help them without hesitation. The guy then tells her to imagine how upset the Count would be if they sent him such a letter. In his place, he would have come immediately, beat himself up, and taken his daughter. Kazuya replies that she doubts that this will happen. The girl also says that money is a pressing issue at the moment, and by their standards, it's a lot. But it won't burden her father, so she asks him not to worry. The guy insists he doesn't want the woman to act proudly for him, and asks her to let him earn some money and sort out the situation. The girl asks if he still thinks she's one of Roberno. Her interlocutor is a little surprised, and the lady asks if he knows that the barony of Grizz isn't just his, but hers as well. The main character says she's doing this for the barony. So why does he think she's sacrificing for him? People do what they can to make her home better, and it doesn't hurt her pride at all, because the last thing she wants is to be proud for nothing. Pride won't feed her as long as she lives. And in her thoughts, the lady adds that she lived without relying on her father or anyone else until she could ask for help. So the lady does not understand why she was such an idiot. After which, the main character tells her husband to come to her. The girl asks what he will do in the future when their daughter has problems and she asks for help. The lady says he wouldn't think she lacks self-confidence. The guy immediately exclaims that of course not, and the lady is a little startled by the sharp cry. She also claims she thinks her father would have reacted the same way. There was a time when she hated him, but now she understands that everyone has their own values in life. Even when she was a child in Roberno, he made sure nothing was missed. The Baron claims that, of course, if he were a count and had a daughter like her, he would do anything. The main character thanks him for such words, but the guy insists that it's true. When the girl turns to her husband, he thinks what kind of atmosphere this is. It's as if they're about to kiss. The girl wonders if she can really do this sober, but then he just closes his eyes as if giving permission. At that moment, Zester pulls her towards him and kisses her. The guy understands that every time he dares to touch Cassia, it seems to him that he is a pathetic mortal who desired a beautiful goddess. He experiences an indescribable feeling of overwhelming immorality. When a guy looks at his wife, he immediately gets up and swears in his thoughts. The main character understands that she was given a new life to have fun and overeat, so where and how is it spent? At this point, the guy turns to his wife and asks if he can do it again. A little while later, the person is already lying calmly and understands that between the first and second time, there was a short break, and then there was easily a third time. Well, now she's much better. The guy turns to his wife and thanks her. The main character asks what's going on, and he replies that it's just like that. Zester understands that he really should treat her well, even if he has to eat only bread, even though it is good for his body. He will buy her warm and expensive clothes, even if he freezes to death before falling into eternal sleep. The boy asks her not to send that letter, and the main character wonders if he's talking about it again, then asks her not to worry. Her father would rather help her than allow her to lead a miserable life. It's not only his fault that the estate is poor. When the guy wants to object, the main character claims that there is nothing to worry about and that he will constantly leave the estate empty in order to earn money. She thinks she'll be a little lonely. Naden claims that once he leaves on business, he'll be gone for a long time, and the very thought of being alone without him is unbearable. But at the same moment, the guy hugs his wife tightly, and the girl says that it hurts her. The Baron apologizes and says he won't leave her alone. He's so sorry he can't be with her. The lady says that's why she asks him to understand. He really needs help now, so she suggests they try harder next time. They could do business with James. And when Rakan is well trained, who knows, one day their lands could become the richest in the entire north. Cassia. He claims that everything will be fine. The girl realizes that in her past life, she hated her father. He was the kind of man who valued wealth and honor above all else. He wasn't the best father to his children, but now she feels he wasn't the kind of man who would turn a blind eye to his offspring's problems. It wasn't her father's fault she suffered in Grizz. Perhaps the problem was a lack of communication, or perhaps the fact that she hadn't visited him for 10 years. He was holding on to his victory. Although he didn't say kind words, it was her father who wrote first. And she wasn't the only one having a hard time. In her past life, she was preoccupied with hatred for her father and husband. Now, the girl turns to her husband and asks if she can go to Ruberno. At that very moment, the guy replies that he doesn't, and the main character is surprised. The guy tells her to promise him that he won't leave her. Cassia remembers his words about how, from now on, he'll listen to her and do everything right, so she asks him not to leave her. Cassia. He understands that it's not that difficult to remember, after which he claims that he misunderstood, because she's not going to leave forever, but simply asked if she could go there at least once. The Baron asks if this is true, and the girl replies that of course it is, because how can she run away to her parents 2 months after their wedding? After that, the guy suggests they go together. After all, how does she plan to make the entire journey south alone? And besides, what will her father think of him if he lets her go alone? The girl wonders why he continues to insist and whether he's truly afraid she'll run away. To which he replies, yes, and the lady understands that he's as straight as a rail, but she never thought she'd receive so much attention from her husband. Perhaps she simply didn't know what he was like at first, or perhaps he's truly changed. Frankly, she's not angry. And perhaps this new life is an opportunity to correct the mistakes she made in the past. She thinks about all her loved ones and realizes that those she hated in her past life will likely appear. The next morning, the butler approaches the lady and asks if she'll allow him to praise her. The protagonist says, "Okay, that's enough for her." The man claims he's so grateful she's returned to Grizz, but he prayed to God every day. Kasia. He claims she did say that it was enough. The girl realizes she can look at the doctor's letter a little. It says the man thanks Grizz for their support and for protecting peace in the northern lands. On behalf of everyone, they have demonstrated the virtues of nobility and undoubtedly deserve proper treatment. The girl understands that high-quality fabrics, leather, and horses will definitely help their finances, and in other words, this means that she should take it and not let the South find out. The butler at this time claims that the gentleman must have made a significant contribution in his past life, not to mention the Imperial War. Otherwise, he would never have gotten such a beautiful lady as a wife. The main character turns to the butler again and understands that he has been behaving since I heard what Vish had done. Then the man said that even if his entire family tree were to fall into disrepair, he was still a scumbag and didn't deserve pity. The man claims that the financial situation has been put in order for some time, and they can even cover the costs of hiring and training new soldiers. Kasia thanks him, but wonders if that will be enough. The man replies that they will, and he was quite surprised, especially considering how many gold bars Count Axios sent. He gave a whopping 30. The man claims he was surprised when Viscount Barnon sent 5 bars. After all, as the wealthiest man in the north, he has enormous resources. The girl realizes that if she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have asked her father for help. Meanwhile, the butler invites the lady to look at Count Axios's letter, as he also noted the lady's wisdom. It says he's ashamed that he can't express his gratitude to the lady who demonstrated the virtues of nobility. Therefore, he cordially invites his old friends, Baron and Baroness Grizz. It would be wonderful if they could discuss the further development of the northern regions together. In this letter, he asks her to walk these precious steps together, and once again thanks the lady for her wisdom. The girl realizes that this is truly strange. Paul claims that although she also lives in the north, they haven't had the opportunity to get along with the lords of large territories. Kasia. She says she sees no reason why they can't get along, but he's just being an idiot for no reason. The butler claims that Count Axios represents the north in any case, so that's good news. The girl wonders why he praises him so much, since anyone who heard him would think they owed him their life. Paul wonders if the lady remembers the Imperial War that took place 3 years ago. She must have been too young at the time. A war broke out in the north. The situation reached a stalemate, and the Imperial army began to lose numbers. People are still talking about the tactics the Count used then. The girl realizes that she met Bertel for the first time. Axios, a year and a half after arriving in Grizz. This happened before the territorial war in the north. The impoverished territory of Grizz was put in a difficult position, and while the northern lords fought over the territory, it became their battlefield. The main character wonders what the king was thinking when he offered Grizz as a reward. For Axios, the so-called king of the north, this became a test. Viche and Barnon rallied while Zester helped Axios. Day and night, the young couple had to flee to the Grizz estate while it was still a battlefield. There was a time when the girl prayed to God for the war to end as quickly as possible. Berthold became king of the north, but the so-called Black Lion was sent back to the castle of the tiny estate. One day, Zester asked the lady to save the count, as he was his benefactor. The main character replied that she understood. The girl thought that if anything went wrong, it would be all her fault, so she took care of him without a wink of sleep. The lady also told him not to give up and to hold on a little longer. She thought her husband would be devastated if this guy fell into eternal sleep. Throughout the war, Bertel struggled to resist falling into eternal slumber. When the victory message arrived from his allies, he barely rose. Zester trusted and respected Bertol without reason, but it wasn't worth it. A little while later, the guy was already pestering the main character and claiming that he definitely wanted to take her to his estate, so let her think about it. The lady understood that she cared for him day and night, and he didn't even know how to say thank you, and it was so disrespectful. Until Axios left, Zester mustn't know. And this was only her concern, because even the thought of it was so unpleasant for her. Paul, meanwhile, turned to the lady, and the girl asks if he says that they did a great job and that it's great. The girl understands that a territorial war will break out in a few months. But who will believe her if she says such a thing? The lady also wonders what they will do if the war can't be prevented. And is there really no way to stop the unrest in Grizz? War is truly frightening. And I'd also like to see Berthol. However, if they leave things as they are. At that very moment, someone informs the lady that Mr. James has arrived, and the girl realizes she had arranged the meeting. The lady claims that she couldn't wait for the day when they would finally discuss the body with Wiggs. The butler merely smiles, and the girl asks what's wrong. He replies that he apologizes for suddenly remembering the day she arrived at the estate. He also asks if the lady remembers the time when she had a bad relationship with the master. He thought I was unfamiliar with the duties of the estate's mistress, but now, 2 months later, he's so proud of her. Kasia thinks that's what she was. What can I say? If she just watches from the sidelines, I'll get bored. And one only has to imagine what would happen if she left this idiot alone. Even though she's so busy with it that the thought of boredom never even crosses her mind, her job isn't all that hard. And whenever she wakes up in the morning, you greet her with a look full of love. In a past life, she could only dream of such a thing. But at that very moment, the butler brings her out of her thoughts, and the girl immediately insists that she needs to go. A little while later, the merchant tells the lady to look there. But at the lady's suggestion, the inner layer is made of Ragla's skin, and then air will pass through. If you overdo it with the wig, it can lead to skin diseases, so he is grateful that the children allowed him to work with Ragla's precious skin. And she invited us to such a wonderful dinner that he doesn't even know what to do with himself. Raven says it's not that big a deal to set the table, so he shouldn't feel burdened. But the man thanks them again and asks how many times the lady must have looked along the river to notice this. Barment's skin is easy to obtain, but it's too thick and tough. The protagonist understands that this is all because she saw the final product, and now people are arguing that he should target aristocrats to make a profit. So it's no surprise that he strives for good quality. But the merchant insists she shouldn't be so modest, and the Baron agrees. He says James has been doing this alone for a long time, but to no avail, to which the man replies, "That's exactly it." And the Baron says he can't even imagine how surprised he was when they toured the estate that time. James claims the lady received so much praise from the people living in the barony, how beautiful and generous she is for the mistress of the Grizz estate. A lady! It's practically a blessing from God. The Baron replies that this is true, and in fact, he was rather poor at managing the lands, so he decided to follow his wife's advice. But isn't she a marvel? The main character tells the darling to stop, and the merchant replies that of course, and he's sure everyone will agree, because the lady is perfect for Lord Grizz. Well, the man told him not to say anything about not believing him, because he'd been laughing the whole time. James told the Baron that his wife was truly amazing, because he came to Grizz because of them. The girl asks if that's really true, and the man replies that, after all, the Baron is a famous war hero. Although he wasn't originally from this empire, the Imperial War became known to many. A mercenary who slew 150,000 soldiers with an army of only 50,000 men. The main character, shocked, wonders what this is all about. Her husband, however, insists that it wasn't all thanks to him, as Count Axios's excellent tactics played a significant role. The lady claims that she was young and inexperienced at the time and had no interest in war, after which she wonders how James learned about it. The man replies that the master made a huge contribution to the Imperial War, so it's hard not to acknowledge his efforts. The guy also claims that if it hadn't been for the collapse, an earthen mercenary like him wouldn't have even dared to raise a sword. But the girl completely ignores her husband, insisting that it's true, and how did he manage it? The merchant claims that the army of 150,000 soldiers was almost defeated and retreated. The Baron won the battle with only 50,000 soldiers. The protagonist wonders how her husband managed to pull off such a feat with such a huge disparity in numbers. The merchant explains that the battle took place in a place in the north, and that he heard they defeated Berutov Mali in the Boyars' camp. Since the territory was small and strategy was based on terrain. He doesn't know much about wars, but it sounds amazing. Zester. He claims that everything is not so at all, because it was Count Axios who defeated the Baratovs, and not him. But the main character immediately puts down her cutlery and says there's no need to praise him so much. She knows Count Axios is famous. The guy insists he was only telling the truth, and if it weren't for the blacks, he wouldn't have had a chance to contribute to the war. The main character claims she already understands and asks if he can stop explaining. It was he who routed the 10,000-strong army and forced them to retreat with only 50,000 troops. Zester. He says that's how it is, but the girl claims that she doesn't want to hear about Count Axios, whom everyone already praises. After all, she's more interested in learning about her husband. After which, the girl continues eating and asks the boy how he came up with the idea to fight in the gorge. After all, wasn't that also the Count's order? Zester he replies that no, because he was ordered to deal with the retreat of the Beirut army. The girl asks if he was really ordered to do that with 50,000 soldiers. The man replies that yes, they were retreating along the hill near the gorge, and they waited at the exit to see what lay beyond. The Beirut army, having turned around, was forced to flee toward the Count's main army. The border was too narrow for 150,000 soldiers to fight 50,000. But then the guy claims he's been talking too much, and the lady probably isn't very interested. But the main character replies that she enjoys listening to him and asks if it's amazing. She also wonders what kind of boiler Berthel is. After all, didn't he send them to meet the plunge into eternal sleep? Zester claims that it's not that amazing, and the merchant claims that you're incredible, because even after the end of the war, everyone was talking about it. Like a wild dog, he threw out the troops of the Baruts. Kasia. She replies that she agrees, and still can't believe that 50,000 people went against 150,000. The guy talks about the Count again, and claims that he is nothing compared to him. But the main character angrily stabs her fork into the pie, and claims that His Majesty also decided her husband's feat was worthy of respect, and granted him a title and land. So why does their master only praise Count Axios? Didn't the Count actually send them to their deaths? Jacob insists that this is true, as the master truly defeated the Beirut forces, and even Count Axios didn't foresee it. People claim she's saying the same thing, then asserts that the darling should be more proud of his contribution to the imperial war, to which he agrees. The girl understands that to his great happiness he won the victory, but in that battle he was destined to fall into eternal sleep. So why are people so ignorant? Whether what he allows himself to see is mercy or not. Zester. He says that the quiche is simply delicious today and offers the lady to take her piece too. The main character then happily eats this piece and thinks that her husband is truly wonderful. A little while later, the girl reads a letter from her father, where he writes that he is happy to receive a letter from her to the authorities after such a long time, and is glad to hear that she has settled well in the barony. Of course, he had no doubt that she would do a great job. Although he knew about the situation in Grizz, he couldn't have been more attentive, so we apologize for having to send Kay a letter. He also misses Kasia very much, so he told her to come as soon as she receives a letter from Ruberno. The lady understands that she will first need to go to Ruberno and then meet with Bertol at least once for the sake of the estate. It'll take some work, but then the girl wonders why those days haven't arrived yet. It's not like they're always on schedule, but perhaps that doesn't bother her all that much. And yet, she never thought things would turn out this way with Zester. Things are changing steadily, but the guarantee that Rael and Lucy will be born safely is still in question. At that moment, her husband knocks on the door, and the girl tells him to come in. The guy asks when the lady is going to bed, and she replies that she's already going to bed. Zester also notices Count Gavilan's gift, and the girl asks if he's talking about the bedside lamp. He feels that, yes, it's nice, but isn't it a shame that you can't turn it on and off? The main character replies that when she doesn't need it, she can simply cover it with cloth, and there's nothing annoying about it. Then the guy asks where the cloth is. The lady, a little embarrassed, asks him why, and he replies that he needs to cover her up, since it's time for her to sleep. The main character covers the lamp, and then says that's what they'll do then. But her husband only hugs her, after which she kisses him on the cheek, and then it rises and hangs over her. When a guy is about to kiss a lady, then the girl pushes him away, and claims that she doesn't want to do this today. The Baron is shocked, then turns around and apologizes guiltily. Kasia. He says that's not the issue, and that I'm just not feeling well today. The guy says he's such a fool for not noticing and wonders if he really is like an animal. Zester, he says he's guilty and just trash, but the main characters aren't interested in why he's suddenly trash. After which, he claims he's trash and an animal. People must have been sleep-deprived lately because of him. He just can't seem to control himself. After this, the main character only sighs and claims that she is not feeling well today, and there is nothing that can be done, so he can go back to sleep in his room. Zester asks why and if it's because he was wrong. He also wonders why he should leave. Kazuya. They reply that since they won't be doing this, won't it be awkward for them to just lie together? That's what she meant when she said to go back to her room. The guy claims that the lady seems to have misunderstood something because he doesn't come there just to do that. He just misses his darling when she's not around. When they're apart, he wants to be together. And he comes there because he likes to get laid in the morning. Needless to say, he caused this misunderstanding with his behavior, and it's not her fault. The main character immediately turns to her beloved and asserts that she doesn't think he's to blame for anything, so he shouldn't worry. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that she's making decisions for him, she's just doing what she has to. And the guy has been busy training soldiers lately, and if anyone heard them, they'd think he's just straining himself and not working at all. Zester understands that he spent all his last days training at the training grounds, and she knew about it. Zester. He thinks he's definitely lost his mind. The guy claims it's hard for him to just look at the lady, but they're still much better off if she's in front of him, so he asks to be allowed to sleep next to her from now on, and let the darling not kick him out just because she doesn't want to, which the girl agrees to. She also asks her husband to lend her his arm as a pillow, and he agrees. As they lie down, the Baron asks if they're leaving the day after tomorrow. Kazuya asks if he's talking about going to Ruberno, and wonders if he'll be busy, to which he replies no, and that he'll make all the necessary preparations for their departure. He must greet the Count properly and express his gratitude for life. So he thinks he should enter into a slave contract this time. This only makes the heroine laugh. A little while later, they are already in the carriage, and when the girl sees how nervous her husband is, she starts laughing and also wonders why he is so nervous. The lady also tells him to move towards her and ties his tailcoat. Zester asks when they'll arrive, and the people reply that they're almost there. The girl shows us into her house. The young man sees the Count's house and a multitude of servants, after which he immediately rises and leaps out of the carriage. The girl tells him to leave this to the servants, and the Baron immediately replies that he certainly must take care of his wife too. The main character, seeing how nervous he is, just laughs. When the guy gets out of the carriage with his things, he says he's glad to meet her and introduces himself. He claims that he should have greeted them earlier, but could only meet the Count after his personal invitation. The man looks coldly at the boy, who wonders if he did something wrong or if he's in a bad mood today. The main character emerges from the carriage and insists that she told the servants to leave it to him. Then she looks at her father's cold expression and asks what's wrong. As soon as the father sees his daughter, he immediately smiles and runs to her. The man hugs his daughter and says they haven't seen each other in a long time. He also asks if everything is okay with the girl, to which she replies that as far as he sees it, everything is okay. At that moment, her brother and sister run up to their sister and hug her. The mother also approaches her daughter and asks why she's lost so much weight, since she says everything's fine. The sister insists that it's because she's wearing such a bulky outfit. The lady understands that whoever gave it to her would be embarrassed to hear this. While everyone continues talking, the main character wonders why everyone is crowded together at once. At this point, the father takes his daughter's hand and asks if she's had breakfast yet. He asks her to make her something she likes for lunch, so he suggests they go. At this time, the main character turns to her father and introduces her husband and also asks if he greeted him. While her father remains silent, the protagonist glares at him menacingly, seemingly asking if he's even listening as he greets guests. The Count then turns to the Baron and extends his hand, saying he's pleased to meet him. The young man immediately drops the things he was carrying and extends his hand to the Count, saying he's honored. After greeting the defense official, the man joyfully turns to his daughter and invites them inside. A little while later, the family is already looking at the gifts, and sister claims that she has never seen such stones. The girl asks if it's a diamond. He defensively replies awkwardly that it's not a reagent, but a mineral called Ayla from the Axios mines. The main character wonders if this is Estella's first visit to him, but she thought the girl would recognize him because she liked jewelry. These minerals were first mined in the lands of Axios last year, and the stone is similar to a diamond, but softer, making it easier to work with. Let the girl pay attention to how painstakingly and detailed it is finished. Estella. She says it's clear and admires the jewelry. The main character says that jewelry from Ayala is quite popular in the north, and besides, did she know that northern trends will soon spread to the south? The girl thinks maybe not now, but definitely in 10 years. Her interlocutor says she understands and thanks the Baron. The guy replies that it's nothing and thanks them for being so happy to accept it. The boy, meanwhile, examines the clothes and insists that he has plenty of them, so it shouldn't have been a gift, but he'll accept it since it's from the Baron. Zester says that's how it is, he didn't think of it either. But the main character turns to her brother and insists that he's still young and doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't realize it since he's never left Ruberno. But if the boy were to head north in his clothes, he'd probably freeze. Next year, he'll be 10, so doesn't he think it's time to travel and expand his horizons? Shouldn't he visit the northern capital, after all? His son-in-law gave him a valuable coat, and if the guy ever decides to go north, he should make sure to take it with him. The guy says that his sister, he's right, and he didn't think about it. After that, the guy thanks the Baron, who replies that it's nothing. The Count, meanwhile, watches the boy and realizes that his only redeeming quality is his body, strong from a harsh life. Estella turns to her sister, looking at the box in her hands and wondering what it is, that these countries have been cherishing it since their arrival. The girl opens a box of wigs and claims they're planning to start a business on their estate, and that it's called a wig. Her relatives look at it with some surprise and ask if it's really hair. The protagonist explains that they used human hair and Ragla's skin to create various hairstyles that can be tried on and worn. She thinks it would suit fashion-conscious aristocrats. The little girl at that moment turns to her maid and asks if she could please bring a mirror there. A short time later, the lady is already trying on a wig. Her mother declares that their daughter is so beautiful, and the little girl also turns to her father and asks how she looks, to which he replies that she looks very good. The girl also turns to the Baron and asks what he thinks, to which the man replies that it's wonderful, and the lady looks very much like his wife. The lady looks beautiful even without the wig, but perhaps the short hair adds a special charm. Estella. He claims that his sister is much more beautiful. So what is this similarity he sees? The Count insists that, okay, it looks like it will be a good business. However, the price will be high because of the Rala leather, so is that really why she sent the letter? The girl replies that this is just one of the reasons, since the business is aimed at aristocrats. Even if the initial capital is taxed, she plans to make a huge investment. The man claims it's a glorious plan, but is there any point in trying for Grizz if the population's finances are limited? Cassia is a little surprised, but her father insists that with his funding, she can start everything in Ruberno. Quite a few wealthy people live there, and even if they're not noble, business will be successful. The protagonist wonders if he really wants to sell it down the river at a reasonable price and keep the profits for himself. Cassia thanks him for the offer, but insists she'd rather start in Grizz. She's already sent documents to the imperial family to secure exclusive rights. The man replies that the rights to the product can be transferred. He's just afraid that it will be difficult for her to bear this burden, as she's never been in business before, so she risks facing numerous trials and tribulations. The girl replies that who knows, because wouldn't she easily succeed if she followed in her father's footsteps? The Count immediately says the lady is right, and as for the support fund, will about 1 million gold pieces be enough? She replies that of course, and the Baron is shocked, wondering if that's really so much. The Count asks if this is truly enough, to which the girl replies that it is. And her father has done everything possible to take care of her. If they lack funds, they can enlist the help of neighboring estates. She'll grant them distribution rights and shares, and the rate will depend on the assistance received. But the man wonders what she'll invest in if the interest rate is low. Cassia replies that she is confident that the business will be successful. To start, she plans to make a few samples with the money he provided and promote them. Then they'll get a rough estimate and find out if their project will be successful. She was actually going to ask if her father was planning to invest in stocks. But it seems Ruberno's finances have been tight lately. Since they're a family, she thinks 10% would be appropriate. A man approaches his daughter and claims she's become even smarter since their last meeting. The girl replies that she'll take it as a compliment, and her interlocutor asserts that he'll ensure all costs for the initial production are covered. In exchange, he'd like to receive distribution rights in the South, to which people agree. Meanwhile, the main character and her husband left to get their luggage. Her mother says their daughter is still the same even after leaving for Grizzly, but it seems she's become more resilient. The woman also says it's great that her husband agreed, and he points out that she's their daughter, so they owe it to her to help at least in this way. He's not as knowledgeable about it, but he thinks the business will be successful. Wigs will become popular not only among women, but also among gentlemen. Kazuya would have achieved success faster if she had started in Ruberno, but she's so stubborn. The woman easily dismisses her husband and claims he even tried to take control of this body from her. But the man asks if she heard what their daughter said, and if she really thinks she would sit back and let him do that. His wife replies that he should be grateful that she still thinks of him as a father, and he says he would prefer not to send her anywhere and leave her to live with them. They raised their daughter so carefully, but they were called upon to transfer her north, even before the Imperial War began. The man wrote to the emperor, asking if they really wanted the same countess sent north, and whether they even knew how old she was. The count insisted that he would only send his daughter to a good and well-known place. But a short time later, the emperor insisted that he had already taken care of everything, so he should just let her go, as this was his last chance. The man realized that, ultimately, Grizz wasn't the kind of land he'd consider letting her go to. After which, the man claims he hates it to death. The woman asks who he's talking about and whether it's Baron Grizz. Well, what's the matter with him? He replies, of course. His interlocutor asks why, since he's better than she expected, and she was the one who hated him more than anyone else until they met. The count asks what's so good about him, and the woman replies that he seems nice, and the way he looks at Kasia is simply delightful. She was ready to die of embarrassment because he was so charming. The count claims that, of course, he was charmed and managed to secure a wife who was clearly beyond his level. Isn't it natural if she looks like a goddess? At the same moment, the main character asserts that this is exactly what she says and tells her father that he doesn't approve of Baron Grizz. The woman tells her son that even if he doesn't approve, what can she do? The girl is already married to him. The young man insists he still doesn't approve. Baron Grizz isn't good enough for their sister, even though he's considered an aristocrat. But there's still a hint of simpleton in him, and it's a shame. His sister starts laughing and wonders what Alan is saying. The count tells his son that he partly agrees with him, but he should be careful. They can talk about it among themselves, but they should choose their words carefully. The boy tells his father that he's not stupid and at least understands that. His father replies that he knows, but wants to make sure the boy doesn't make a mistake. The young man insists he shouldn't worry so much, and then suggests his sister go, as he wants to show her something. The girl follows her brother. Watching them, the man realizes that Alan is smart for his age and the ideal heir. He has these dominant, aristocratic traits, and it reminds him of something that can't be said about the gentle Kasia. After which, the man wonders what else she has planned. A little while later, Atella is twirling in front of the mirror, trying on a wig. The boy turns to his sister and asks her if she thinks it's right that everyone supports the grizzly barons. Weren't he, she, and their mother dissatisfied before their arrival? Baron Grizzly isn't exactly the type for their older sister. So the girl asks, isn't it true that after meeting him, he seems quite nice to me? The young man screams in shock at his sister, and the lady asks why the screaming. The boy says this so the girl can see what kind of person sister is. Dad said their sister is a gift from fate, appearing in Ruberno once every 100 years, and that's how special she is. Then the boy exclaims, didn't she notice? Her father was involved in so many businesses, but he didn't faze her in the least. Everything she earned in her body, that Baron would take without lifting a finger. And he was simply lucky to marry their intelligent sister. If sister saves the filthy, poor YouTube estate, the Baron will receive all the credit, since he is the lord. The girl immediately replies that he is right, and the young man asserts that this man will do nothing, and everyone will be convinced otherwise. It's all because of the inhabitants' worldview. Even if sister decides this is all too far-fetched, that's exactly what will happen over time. Estella cries out that this won't happen because their sister is their savior, and he should be grateful to her for the rest of his days. The guy insists that this is a different matter, and they must clearly demonstrate the difference in their situations. Otherwise, their sister will have to endure all the hardships in Grizz and may be mistreated. The girl also asks if he knows he always said their sister would be suited to someone as handsome as her brother Ian. The young man exclaims that if you put them side by side, they don't look very good at all, like an angel and a beast. But the girl insists this guy doesn't look like the wild man they say he is, and she was a little surprised by his build and handsome face. She also thinks he's just their sister's type. But the girl also says that the guy is right again, because her brother Ian is better looking. And isn't he her ideal? Or the girl says that, regardless of the answer, she thinks they're both beautiful, just in different ways. The young man cries out to his sister again, insisting they'd already discussed this before the Baron's arrival, so he suggests they remember. He tells her to remember to do everything in stages, and the girl replies that she understands. The young man suggests they draw the line after dinner. They simply had to take this chance and prove that the Baron was completely unsuitable for their sister. A short while later, they were already looking at the sumptuous table, and the Baron wondered if it was really normal for people from the south to set the table so much. Then the boy wondered where to begin. Alan, meanwhile, says that compared to the north, the food in the south is more varied. It turns out that a generous welcome is considered quite virtuous among aristocrats. Not unlike in Grizz, the man asks if that's true, and the young man insists the Baron must be embarrassed, since he's never tried anything so expensive. So he deliberately calls the chef and then tells the woman to begin. The chef agrees and asks to try the soup before the main course. It's a traditional southern soup made with milk, salt, ground pork, and eggs. The Baron says it's clear, but the woman insists that Rezo is on the left side of the Baron. Baika. It's a steak served with their beef brisket and Rezo sauce. She then lists several more dishes and claims that, according to Southern tradition, it's customary to eat goetia with the napkin on the left. The Baron looks at all this in shock and realizes it's information overload. The main character says that even though there's a lot of food there, he can eat it however he likes. Meanwhile, the man looks at the turkey and realizes he can just eat what he's used to. When he reaches for it, the chef insists it will be served directly to his plate, to which he replies, "I understand." Estella insists that all meals are served this way, and they'll simply wait for the servants to do their work. The girl also turns to her sister and says that the Baron probably never served her during meals, and of course doesn't know about it. After which the two start laughing. The main character realizes that even though these two are immature due to their age, aren't these kids just a little too cunning? She also looks at her parents and wonders what they're doing, but they don't even pay attention. When one of the servants takes a plate of turkey, the main character tells her to leave it. After all, since this is her husband's first dinner in the South, she'd like to serve him herself. People claim there's no special way to eat it. People eat them and live the same way everywhere, so let him just eat as he likes. To which he agrees, and the main character looks coldly at her relatives. The Baron, smiling, thanks his wife, after which the woman turns to her darling and hands him a piece to try. The man looks at her, a little surprised, and the woman says her arm will fall off while she waits, after which he eats a piece of meat and claims that everything she eats tastes delicious. Alan watches this with irritation and realizes that this shouldn't be the case. Meanwhile, the Count turns to his daughter and states that Drayan should arrive in the evening, and that he will also be staying at the estate for a few days. Cassia. She asks what he means by that, and the man insists that he was contacted just as suddenly. The protagonist wonders if there's anything so urgent that Count Gavilan would be invited so unexpectedly. He replies that they say the head of a family of sages who studies magical stones has arrived in Gavilan. He invited them because he wanted to see them. The girl says she heard they arrived in Gavilan a long time ago. So, is it really necessary to invite them when she's in Ruberno? The man replies that he knows it's probably awkward, but hopes the lady will understand. He also plays it safe and says he's already met Count Gavilan once. There shouldn't be any awkwardness, so he hopes he's not asking for much. The guy immediately replies that of course he wouldn't answer. He said it was urgent, so the count shouldn't pay attention to him. The man insists he's as generous as they say, so he thanks her for her understanding. The main character wonders if that's really a compliment. The guy at this time takes a piece of meat on a fork and holds it out to the road and wishes bon appetit Keisha. She's wondering what to do with this idiot, after which I get what he gave her. A little while later, the guy is sitting on the couch and remembering how the lady claimed that no matter how much she thought about it, it was wrong. So she'll talk to her father again and return. The young man thinks everything really is fine. He also looks around the room with its luxurious interior and bed. Just then, someone knocks on the door, and it turns out to be the main character's relatives. The servants bring desserts, and the lady's sister asks if it's true that they live in a hut in Grizz. The man replies no. There were several in Bohemia, where he used to live, but before he can say anything, the girl cries out in surprise. The boy claims that locals lived there many years ago, but they're probably gone now. The girl asks if the Lord ever lived in the hut, to which he replies no. The boy immediately turns defensive and asks him to tell her more about his life in Bohemia. The man explains that his parents were farmers and that they rented land from the owner, grew vegetables, and even picked fruit from the mountains. The girl, shocked, asks if he really didn't own his own land. He replies that most farmers in Bohemia were farmers. In the village, some people owned their own land, so everyone rented plots and grew something. The boys wondered if they were really that poor. The girl also said that the Baron had truly succeeded in seeing the forest. Had he continued to live in the village and farm, he would have been completely unable to measure up to their sister. The young man agrees with his sister and says that if he had not taken part in the Imperial War, he would never have met anyone like her in his entire life. The Baron, with a smile on his face, says that this is true and therefore he lives every day with gratitude.